Sup, my fellas. Don't forget to leave feedback and enjoy the story. We see a guy who says that he won. At this time, a screen of the game is shown, and people are shocked that he passed it, the first in the whole world. A game that boasts unrealistic difficulty, Defense of the Empire, and now 10 years after the release of someone successfully managed to pass it. Right, this someone was our hero. He was a streamer and always said that no matter how difficult a game is, it exists to be played. The streamer who plays only the most difficult games, even if he doesn't talk about it, is a typical nerd. Someone gave him $300. It was all thanks to them. He was the first person to pass this absurdly difficult game, which no one else could pass in the 10 years since the release. His game technique is very cool. There is no better achievement for a gamer. But if he regrets something, the way subscribers have become attached to the characters during this time while he was playing, they hoped that all of them would survive the final battle. But in the end, all but the main character, Lucas, died. His goal was not to reach the end without losing. The final boss princess of the lake that cannot sleep. The game was over. Only here Lucas remained standing in the same position. The last location was completed. MVP Lucas, Hell Difficulty Mode, Iron Man, completed, World Ranking, first. Lucas remained standing in the same position in front of the boss monster that he killed on top of the mountain of corpses of enemies and allies. Why so? Even though he was just a character in the game from the back, he looked a little sad. Shouldn't the developer give him some kind of prize or something after finishing the game? Because they were criticized for this level of difficulty, and he was able to pass it, so he deserved something. I needed a reward. He had fun spending time with the guys, but the greed in his eyes was still present. He would have taken the reward if they offered. Mr. A had been missing for a long time. He hadn't made a sequel in these 10 years, and there was no way to contact him. But at some point, a greeting from the same director of Empire Defense appeared on the screen. To begin with, he would like to thank the guy because he had already given up, thinking that no one could succeed, but that the hero could. He was really relieved and thanked him again. They still have hope. Maybe he's talking about creating Empire 2. The guy has proven his worth, how good his skills are. So he's asking to go through it with him. It's just some person looking for attention. It can't be that the creator of the game was on his stream. It's worth removing this person from the broadcast. He turned to the director, but then his vision went dark. He may have overplayed it. It's okay. Subscribers will call for help if he faints. The guy woke up on the battlefield and did not understand what was happening. Guns were firing. There was a smell of gunpowder everywhere, knights. There was a war. He wondered what was going on there if they were in the middle of a war. A knight began to run at him. The guy was very afraid that it was an enemy and told him not to approach, but then he only worried about his condition. He apologized for scaring the guy and fell on his knees to repent. There was an explosion. There was some green matter in the sky. The enemy was advancing, and everyone was trying to protect each other. Some were pierced through. It was a huge spider. The hero's body didn't move. It's a dream or a hallucination. This whole situation is too improbable. The spider swung at him, but to die like this, chickens to death. As the spider continued to attack, a certain guy with blonde hair saved it. His face looked very familiar. It was Lucas. The guy burst into tears. He's glad that the guy finally called him by his first name, even though he hurt his head, no matter how much he served him. He could never remember his name. If it's the real Lucas, then it can't be. A hero inside the Empire's defense. This game is the most hellish challenge he came to just before he woke up here, defending the Empire. It's a game where he has to kill endlessly, endless hordes of monsters rushing in. It's a game with a hell of a complex defense mechanic. The hero did not understand how he ended up inside the game. Lucas explained that the Black Spider army is attacking. They may lose the forward operational base, but these spiders are not active after sunset. It will set in 30 minutes. Therefore, until time runs out, His Highness must do his best to hold on. Why was he trying to protect His Highness and address him like this? So who was he now? The Black Spider army retreated after sunset. The guy was not too happy and asked what the current date was. Where he was today is the last day of February 649, according to the imperial calendar. This is an advanced operational base located at the intersection of roads, the so-called Fortress City. Since tomorrow is the 1st of March, 649 according to the imperial calendar, an attack of monsters on an advanced operational base. A very familiar situation in a very familiar place. Well, of course, after spending half a year playing the game Defense of the Empire, he was hundreds of times in this location on the exact same story date, undergoing training. His name Ash was shouted by a guy, Ash von Hader Everblack. Why do we give him this particular role? The sick third prince of the Empire. the worst commander who caused a huge number of soldiers to die in the fortress city, as well as the character who died the most terrible death in the story, is exactly him. In the commander's private dorm room, the following happened. He swore at himself in the mirror for not being able to sit still and keep his head down. Classic defensive game, Defend the Empire, the reasons why this game is known as something impassable difficulty of the Hell level, as well as the Iron Man mode, which forcibly saves the entire process by collecting both the difficulty of the game was called Iron Man's Hell, and he is the only one who passed this mode. It would seem that he doesn't care what moment of the game he gets into and is confident in his abilities and that he can find a way out except for training. System window, this location is impossible to pass. The training was designed so that he would be defeated no matter what, because the story begins after Lucas alone escapes from the invasion of monsters. In this game, the plot that lasted 3 years, you can only start hunting an army of black spiders after a year and a half. And how should he now defeat hundreds of these creatures at the very beginning? You need to pull yourself together because he has already passed this game. If he puts together all his knowledge and experience, he will definitely be able to find a way out. But there is no way out. He looked at the system window and did not understand what the levels of these spiders were. And there were more than 1,000 of them here. What was it? Besides the strength of the fortress walls at the very bottom, the only thing that could be used was a mana cannon. And what should he do now? His chances of winning are too small. He must find the path with the highest probability of success. Relax already. I play a game with the Iron Man mode. It becomes impossible to just make a save. And in which case start again at the moment when he messes up, the whole game will be Zaruinina. Therefore, it is important to calculate every action to the millisecond. I have been playing this game for the last 6 months. He realized something that in any situation, you need to do something, and there is always a way to survive. He needed something with a slightly better chance of survival, something to be sure of. So he found it, ran out of the house, and started looking for Lucas, asking him to assemble a squad under his direct control. He means his guards, and he's never called them up before, so why so suddenly? He said one word to him, and he said 10, and His Highness thought of a way to win. Everyone gathered around. There were familiar faces of Lily, Ken, Demian. Of course they were unfamiliar to him. He had seen events in which they had died countless times. But each time he curled up into a fist because he had lost a comrade today. Then the hero realized that he was in the same state when it was over game training. At what time was some strange status imposed on him from the very beginning? He died first, and also could not use his skills, although he was a healer, literally with the most important role. They started with His Highness explaining their roles for tomorrow. Lily's class is Mage, Fire Element. She is the main damage taker of this party, able to hit with one powerful spell after another. She will be their shield blocking the attacks of spiders as a tank. The girl did not understand because she is a magician. Ken is a shield fighter, able to keep aggro at the forefront. He uses mass taunt to attract attention and then takes damage with his body. In short, he is a tank. The guy should be able to sneak into the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and make a mess. The younger kid, as he told Demian Hiller, is a very important class in the game from now on. He is the shooter in this squad and will shoot at the most important targets. And last of all, Lucas, who will command the soldiers and maintain the front line. The man was very angry. Did he really say all this in all seriousness? He dragged them into a dangerous situation because of a bad squad, and still continues to talk nonsense. But it wasn't him, it was that ash. Maybe it really sounds like nonsense. But this is a location that cannot be passed by standard methods. So to pass this crazy loca, you need to become a madman yourself, right? So he won't back down towards the Emperor's son as well as the Supreme Commander. He dares to insubordinate. The man immediately apologized. After all, if the hero lost his grip, it would be over for him, since his plan was completely reckless. He had to make them obey without daring to snap back. Each of them is able to complete their assigned tasks, right? Since they ended up in a psycho's body, why wouldn't they accept his behavior? The prince is really crazy. Doesn't he know how valuable a mage is? The guy ran the girl through with a sword. He doesn't know if the developer added it for fun or not. But all starting characters have a hidden skill, special skills that completely contradict their roles. Lily, she was wounded as a child by a calf when a horde of goblins invaded the village. After that incident, she received the skill Fire Skin. This skill, created by the fear of sharp weapons, she can defend against physical attacks, turns her body into fire. Each use of the skill consumes MP. As long as she has enough mana, she can defend against any physical attack. The tank skill of the main damage collector The game did not have the opportunity to use reality. Because another thing is that he is going to squeeze everything out of this skill, a location that cannot be passed. When he had no choice but to use the cheats, he told whoever put him in here to just watch him go through this terrible game, then grab him by the scruff of the neck and spank him. The method of proof may have been very crude for a girl, but that's okay. Now wouldn't be the time to tell her how he knew all this. Ken, who was a small-time thief from the slums as a child and had a lot of mouths to feed in his family, didn't have an easy time becoming a knight. Where he got all this from, it was completely irrelevant. What was important was how he could use his skills, the pickpocket survival method, the habit from when he was a petty thief. He could hide his presence in the face of danger and avoid attention. It would take a lot of XP for one use. That is, he can become invisible at any time and hide in order to avoid attention. He pointed his sword at him. Either he will answer or you need to show another example. The man was afraid. He really can do this. In this case, he will also be able to fulfill his order. And now Damien, the most important person in his plan, is him. He has incredibly good eyesight, which is why he was able to see his friend's death so clearly. They were with him from the same city, grew up in the same shelter in the midst of a battle. He sacrificed himself for him. Well, why did His Highness bring them here? Why? The guy burst into tears. Well, what great purpose did they pursue? Or were their lives cheap, nothing more than a toy for them? He's begging for Wang to be brought back. He's begging for his friend to be brought back. He can blame His Highness if he wants to. He can even despise him. But his friend Wang sacrificed himself to save his life. Is he going to sit here and wait for death? Whether or not he really wants to give up the life that his friend died for, just because he's on the verge of dying because of a stupid commander, he should grab any lead and avenge his friend. Kill the spiders. Get out of here alive and teach a lesson. When His Highness asked him if he wanted to kill the spiders, the guy said yes. And if he wanted to kill him, he also agreed. The guy promises that if they get out of here alive, he will be the one to take his life whenever that happens. But if the plan fails, they are all doomed to die anyway. If that happens, he will let him be the one to take his life. He swears on the honor of the imperial family. Only one day he asks to follow his orders. Sometimes hatred should be used as an engine, even if this hatred is directed at himself. He will not justify himself because of his mistake. Their army is almost destroyed, but if they follow his plan, they can drive away these spiders. A small but chance of victory there is one. So just once, which is why you should believe him and do as he says. Finally, his squad, his right hand is assembled. He doesn't know if this hand seems like a royal straight, a flush, or just a bad one, but he has no choice but to put it on the line, all of them. The soldiers were asking if His Highness would really be okay, so don't worry and let them do as he said. His plan is just a pair of turnips, while the teammates buy time. They find the queen who gives the orders, and then blow her head to hell with this mana cannon. Having removed the restrictions, they have increased her magic power quite well. Now she has to deal damage even to the queen. The only problem is that it is not possible to see the queen from such a long distance. Human eyes are simply not capable of this. Well, what to do then, of course, create a map. Ash's skill, map creation, ability to see the entire area as a mini-map. When he first saw these terrible stats, he was shocked. Okay? The skill was preserved, and thank you for that. The map was ready. Now they would see where the queen was hiding. If only they could find the boss's mark. This mark didn't have a mission target here. The enemy queen, it doesn't show up on the map. A man, His Highness, came to him, collected all the stamina potions left in the fortress. He told him to go outside and attract attention. Can he handle it? For the girl, he has a painful role in case of penetration of spiders into the artillery unit. He expects her to use the skill of skin from fire and block the entrance. Everyone has gone to their respective positions. They must hold out, shouted Lucas. They need to buy some time until His Highness defeats the queen. This proud expression definitely means that His Highness has completed all the preparations. Cold sweat dripped down his cheeks. Things didn't go according to plan, but the knight has already gone on the attack. It's worth keeping calm. The purpose of training is not to kill the boss, so it's not surprising that it doesn't show up on the map. Probably the queen will appear after a full-scale attack. They have a strong rear and scarecrows prepared in case of an emergency, so this is the only place where the queen can be. He pointed his finger and asked the guy to look in the distance. All he saw were spiders just sitting there doing nothing. He thought it was possible, but could it be? The queen must be among them. If he is talking about a monster whose upper part is from a man to a niche from a spider, then this is it. It looks quite scary. Do not be afraid. Soon it will get hit by a cannon and die. You need to deploy an artillery installation with a muzzle to the southwest. The mana charge was completed. His Highness told the boy to grab the lever, but he's not sure he can handle it. He's never done anything like this before, and he's suddenly forcing it. Of course the guy can miss. He will take all the responsibility, even if he fails. And mess up everything, this is normal. He will take all the responsibility, the hero repeated once again. The responsibility always lies with the commander. Whether the soldiers do what they are told, all the boy has to do is pull the trigger and let him remember that he is taking revenge for a friend. The eyes of 1,000 miles were activated. That's how to beat them to death. His VSO asked the scout where the projectile came from. It hit the target exactly and landed in the center of the pandemonium of monsters. They were very happy. Hugged the guy, he is impressive. Whether exactly the first time Ali takes, he just did what was right for him. The moment he pulled the trigger, his body started moving on its own. It was all thanks to the eye of 1,000 miles abnormal skill that allowed him to always hit the target in the game. He was a character who couldn't hold a weapon in his hands. But here, as soon as he touched it, everyone saw his power. Everyone thought that everything was finished, but a swarm of spiders began to move towards them. It was a square formation. Did not the spiders hit the queen directly go to the artillery unit? It couldn't be. The queen had sent out her orders so damn fast. The fight continued. The man had only one potion left, maybe just to escape, he thought. And when he saw the dark sawdust flying in the air, he fell to his knees. They all continued to attack the queen. The target was hit right in the bull's eye, but the spiders kept moving. The queen is still alive. Isn't there enough damage? Initially, the black spider queen would have died from 1 or 2 hits. After all, she's not that strong compared to battle-type mobs. On the queen of this training location, he doesn't have any information. What if her stats are completely different? What if she has a special skill? And what if this skill doesn't allow her to be killed? What should I do? Due to the powerful explosion of the Yagana, the cannon will soon reach its limit, His Highness explained. In addition, it has suffered a lot of damage. They can't shoot as much as they expected. The knight talks too much out of business. How many times can they still shoot? A total of 5 times. They've already fired twice, so there are 3 shots left. 3 shots left. They have no choice but to finish off the Spider Queen in those 3 shots. Moreover, the guy's eyes. It looks like the eyes from 1,000 miles away have a side effect. There are still 2 shots left. Can he hold on until then? Fortunately, the walls of the central castle are doing a good job. The destroyer is coming. The monster is getting closer and closer. He is trying to break through. The guy did not know how to act in the game. There was nothing like that. He said to direct all the fire at the destroyers. Mozart ran straight at them. The castle walls will collapse. Lucas has ordered them to raise their weapons. They are going down to the 1st floor. They need to pull themselves together, those who are down there protecting them. They must shoot at the queen. Until these monsters get to the artillery unit, they must finish off the queen, the hit was. But she was still alive. Immediately reload the gun for the next shot, the main character quickly ordered. Lucas shouted that they needed to protect the artillery. They had to protect the Imperial Prince. Monsters attacked humans and the number of victims continued to grow. But the guy didn't know when he was playing the game, that they were all real people. The number of dead warriors reached 142. Death. It's not just a number accompanied by heart-rending smells. He closed the status window. With this speed, 5 shots. Everything will collapse as soon as they reach the 4th. What should the hero do to get out of this situation does not occur to him at all. Then Ken appeared behind the evil spirits. He drank the potion and began to pay attention to himself. He ran away from the monsters. Why don't they try to find him? The man used the pickpocket survival method. His health was not strong enough, the skill was rejected. The men were torn apart by monsters. The guy could hear clearly, have a terrifying sound of tearing flesh even from there. His erroneous commands became another person's precious life. Ken advanced forward in the defense line. The knights must not stop and do not dare to take a single step back. But it wasn't just the man's life that was lost. It was everyone in there who lost their lives because of his one order. It was all the guy's fault. No, it wasn't just his fault. It was him who killed them playing this game. He used the knights as bait whenever it was necessary. This damn game was designed that way. In order to save someone, in order to get an item, in order to complete a side quest, in order to gain achievements, someone must die. And he gladly sacrificed them and did not doubt a single thing that he had done so far. But now I realize that any death is accompanied by heartbreaking pain. They will not stop simple screams. We'll never make them stop. Lucas was angry. Very angry. How the monsters dared. Aim at His Majesty. The only option to make them stop is to kill them before they kill them. The gun was loaded for the fourth shot, but the boy's eyes were already bleeding. He could still shoot and tried very hard for everyone. The fourth shot, the blow, it was a direct hit to the head, but the Bloody Queen was still alive. Their attacks have no effect. The cannon is at its limit. If they try again, it will simply explode. Is this the end? The cannon is on the verge of destruction. The defense line is broken. Their shooter can't open his eyes. Is this really the end? Was there really not a shred of hope left? And instead of undoubtedly doing damage to the queen, her skin peeled off. A scout, even in this situation, he was confident in his role to the end. If they could shoot again, he would destroy it. Everything was destroyed. The whole world, the hope of victory. Absolutely everything. His Highness flew down. Science was able to save him. The sacrifice of himself. Before his death, he reminded him of the events of 20 years ago. He can't remember it. Like a player who has taken over someone else's body. He has no memories, not of him or Ash. When His Highness appointed him as his personal guard, what Ko said was that even if he couldn't become an emperor, he would become the coolest person in the world. And as the one who would become his knight, he would strive to become the coolest of them all. And even though it was in the days when he was still a teenager, his words touched his heart so much that he didn't forget them until today. Lucas trusts His Highness like himself. Everything was destroyed on Luca. He should have held on. He's the main character, the savior of this world, can't die in a place like this. He should end it all. Are they somewhere under an artillery unit? How long was he unconscious? The Demians are all gunners. Luckily, they seem to have escaped with fatal injuries, which can't be said about the cannon. Why are they all still alive at all, and where are the spiders? There was a girl standing behind it and defending everyone with her ability. It won't last long while blocking the entrance. But soon the monsters will besiege them and break through these walls. They don't have time. They need to hurry. Don't let them die. It's pointless. He told all the gunners to quickly stand up and load the last shell. The cannon was already over the limit. If they fired again, it would explode. And if they continued to do nothing, they would die under the monsters. Pause. Who doesn't take risks? Doesn't drink champagne, right? They have to do it even if they have to burn out, and you can't see how they're going to aim from here. The gun rack is lost. They'll have to hold it with their hands. If they don't have teeth, they'll have to chew with their gums. There's no need to aim. Demian just needs to make a shot. He ordered the last projectile to be loaded. He doesn't know exactly how the 1,000-mile eye skill works, but as long as Demian shoots, it will always hit the target, so all they can do is just believe. He approached the guy with bloodied eyes. This is the last shot that he needs to make, just one shot. He asks to get together and gain strength for one more time. He asks, what's the point of this if it doesn't matter what he does? Nothing changes. If he hits again, the monster will die. No, it's not about that at all. Let's say he pulls the trigger again and the queen really dies. Then what will change? Half of his friends are already dead. Even if he destroyed all the enemies, he couldn't bring them back. No matter how hard he works, no matter how hard he tries, this world keeps taking something away from him. He wants to end it all. He doesn't want to live in a world like this anymore. If he thinks that this world is not working properly, he thinks that even if he overcomes a huge obstacle on his way, life will continue to be hell. Well, he thinks correctly. If this world has a level of difficulty, then it is definitely hellish. From the very beginning, this was a world with hellish complexity in Iron Man mode. This place is unfair to the point of absurdity. There will never be anything in it according to him. Life is like this. Who doesn't know it? They live surrounded by a devastated landscape. Is he going to stop fighting, want to give up and lie there waiting to die? Is this a worthy reason they should continue to fight until they die? The guy agreed. He will continue and come up with a whole new strategy until the very end. If the boy wants to give up and die, then let him cut his throat with this sword right now. Have the courage. Let him dare, if he is not a coward. He needs to be the trigger. Stop looking back at his dead friends. The only one he needs to continue is His Highness as the commander. No need to look for trivial reasons to survive. That's all that's needed from Demian. The hero unlocked the passive skill, Indomitable Commander, and gave him the order to smash the ugly face of this f***ing monster. The boy followed his orders with the last shot loaded, but they can't cool the gun at this rate. He said that he would support you, but the cannon is incredibly hot. If you touch it, the consequences will be much more deplorable than moderate burns. His Highness will rather burn here than go to hell and burn in the fire there. The boy couldn't feel his eyes or his hands, but it was all right. All he had to do was shoot. They raised their fire cannon and Demian fired directly at the monster. Although it was initially an impossible task to shoot at the enemy, which is impossible to see from the collapsing front, it would turn out to be no chance at all. However, the projectile flies directly to the Spider Queen, ignoring the height, ignoring the distance, and ignoring hundreds of thousands of other monsters. As if following the chosen path, it flew to the queen that screamed from fear and anger and hit her right in the head without the slightest error. Just took and blew her head to hell. When in the game he seemed to swallow his tongue, did not know how best to respond to the first message from the viewer that he received since he started streaming. He wanted to subscribe to it. Well, then he replied it would be better if he rested more. The guy ended up in bed. Demian treated him with magic, but since the burns he received are quite severe, it will take much longer to recover. He slept for 3 days. The girl already thought that he would not wake up after what he had to go through in order to defeat the spider army. The girl survived thanks to the command. His Highness, after the last shot, the queen died. Without her, the spiders froze and stopped moving. They won. The support army took the bodies of their allies and also took care of the remaining spiders. The cleaning is more or less finished, His Highness. He received severe burns on his hands and forearms and neck. He will have to visit the church on his return. But even after a full recovery, a couple of scars will remain. Scars, a much more modest price to pay than life. The girl ended up in a wheelchair when she ran out of mana. The spider wounded her back, but right after that, the queen died and no one else attacked her. But apparently because of the damage to the lumbar nerves in the lower part of her body, she no longer moves, even if she is so grateful that she is still alive. Among the survivors are 5 gunners, Lucas, Damian, and Her Highness, all 9 of them. At the time of the last battle, there were several hundred of them, and only 9 remained. Well, if there was another way, another tactic that he had overlooked, shouldn't there have been a way to save at least one more person? It was impossible to save everyone in that situation, the girl reassured him. He did everything he could, but he was the one who dragged the soldiers there. Even if it was the old Ash, and not specifically him, but it is in his body and is responsible for this. Who would have thought that the monsters would move in droves after so many decades? That's why no one stopped this valuable military campaign, so he shouldn't be here, so. Lucas stormed in and started crying. He was happy that His Highness had survived and was fine. Wasn't he seriously injured himself? It's normal for him to be hanging around here. Of course he was injured, but his strength is that being very cool. He finished and made a list of those killed in battle. There were a lot of people whose bodies they managed to find, but they tried to collect as many as possible. Now the corpses are on the northern plane of the forward operational base. The Highness wanted to take a look, but he didn't need to recover. They died under his command. He would still go, and also called Lucas with him. It was quite comfortable riding on his back, and you can't tell if the guy wants to be his favorite horse. Damian's eyes were fine. Yesterday, her vision started to slowly return. Now she can see again as usual. His Highness heard that the guy himself was healing the wounded, walked around using magic, at least at that moment he couldn't see. Once again, he was faced with harsh realities. The strategy was only successful because of him. If he wanted, he would give him enough money, and he would not need anything for the rest of his life. Make sure that he would never set foot on the battlefield again. First of all, he is a mercenary and free to do as he pleases. But His Highness told him that this is the and he wants to know the origin of these creatures, who created these monsters, when and why his friend had to die. So he asked to be allowed to follow him. His Highness agreed then. From now on, he is following him to honor the memory of the dead. They need a priest. He understands that there was no better way to improve the strategy. But there is nothing more stupid than asking that if thinking about the past, he chose a tactic, researched it, and such a result, he should take responsibility and carry it on his shoulders in order to move forward. At the end of an informal funeral, you need to collect trails and bring them to the crossroads every year. Human losses amount to thousands in this world where funerals are more expensive than life. There is an empty field on the west side of the intersection. You need to bury them there. Pay your respects on the west field. And he plans to build a cemetery where he built a memorial object in the game. And the last day of February will be designated as the day of their sacrifice. And not just this day for all the characters that he killed without any remorse hundreds of times. Passing the game, this is his redemption. He will never fail for anything again. Now, he goes to the main base, Crossroads. After leaving the forward operational base for the 3rd day now, they are moving north to the intersection. It was a very long drive. The guy was dying of boredom. Is this some kind of food if he doesn't ask? Then soon, a table appeared in front of him. He can choose his class. It's more likely to make a decision. He apnol the 5th level after completing training in this game. The class is determined just on the 5th. The growth of stats was terrible in some kind of lame Persian. The most interesting thing is that despite the increase in characteristics, he can choose any class that is available in the game. Only the problem was drawn. At the end of the list, for the first time, he sees something like Commander Novice. He doesn't even know what category it is. A special class that is available after completing training. Is it a so-called hidden class or something? The skill that he received back then is also Indomitable Commander. Apparently this is a hint that he should choose a commander class. This is a great skill, but useless at the beginning of the game. Mental debuffs do not appear soon. It was risky to choose a class that he didn't have any information about. He could see an intersection ahead, and they were finally there. Paradcrestcom was the name of a fortress built on the southern edge to stop the monsters that were constantly climbing out of the Black Lake. At first, this fortress was the most important in the Empire, but gradually the invasion of monsters came to naught, and the army was redirected somewhere else. Due to the lack of an army to defend the fortress, mercenaries were accepted. Veterans preparing to retire or newcomers with no experience for mercenaries did not play a role. Not their nationality, nor the qualifications of the Empire, just needed human shields to support this front line. When life itself lost its value, restaurants, hotels, and banks began to appear here. A decade later, the fortress turned into a city. And at one point people stopped calling it that. Instead, the fortress is called the Fortress City. There was also another name that sounded like a mockery of the mercenaries who flew to their deaths, blinded by money just like moths, Suicide Street, City of Tombstones. This place is the Maginot Line, an intersection, despite through the screen on error understood, but the city is still bigger than he thought. And where battered is this city that he will be in charge of anyway? He just feels the air get heavy. Well, he understands their newly appointed commander and lord, and barely came back alive after slaughtering his troops. However, he knew that something like this could happen. So he brought the magic crystals with him and specially put over 400 black spider magic crystals in the cart, allowing them to be seen. Since they were high-level monsters, these crystals were extremely high quality and it was hard to guess how much they were worth. So expensive that for a while you can completely forget about money. Besides, he must receive a reward for which Tadeg for passing an impassable location. To move smoothly through the story, it is important to cooperate with citizens. Now their trust in him is reduced to 0. He knows how to increase this trust. Just wait, explore in the most effective way. He will buy all their hearts. He arrived at the crossroads of the Lord's Manor. He was surprised. Isn't this the place he will live in? It doesn't compare to the house he lived in before. Never would have thought that he would cry from such a dream home. A guy ran up to him. He was very happy that Lore was alive. He apologized for calling the guy Milord. He will call him His Highness from now on. He was very worried about the fact that he was injured. Poor servant here in the heat, then in the cold, and then generally thought that the gray hair will remain this annoying guy around whom the smell of a traitor flies around. His name is Eider. In the game, he is an NPC that manages the city. All administrative tasks of the intersection are a concern, and the construction of facilities to the maintenance of security systems is the same here. He will manage the city together with him. Taking the guy to the palace said that he had already typed in the bathroom and cooked dinner, but His Majesty only ordered that the soldiers rest well, and also Lucas he also had to rest. A relaxing bath with hot water that he hadn't had in a long time, and the trip had been extremely exhausting, so he was going to have a full night's rest. The boy should have rested today too, the Lord said. That would be incredible, Mr. Typical Nerd, he said. He was able to complete the training in a way that beyond his imaginary world, there was nothing to hide. He is the director of Empire Defense. It turns out that the person who put it here is him. The main character gave him a slap in the face. He asked the guy to calm down. He had to kidnap him, of course, but this world needed him. Now they can chat, so he's the one who sent him those messages, so he's the director of this game, or rather this world. Well, why did he bring the guy here in this world? There is a true ending, the only one that no one has reached. He reset this world countless times in order to achieve it, but he never managed to achieve what he wanted, and he decided to resort to the help of another person. He changed the shape of this world to a game one presented to players from another world. They were able to make good progress in things that he could not even think of. Well, but no one was successful. The guy didn't really make it to it, but he was able to achieve something that no one else could pass the hellish difficulty with the Iron Man mode. Only he was able to pass the game. This is the reason why he is here. The headmaster thought the guy could handle it. That's why he's here. The hero got very angry. He threw him into an impassable training, so also into Ash's body. These are technical chocolates. Well, he didn't expect this either. He asked me to let him start by telling him about the reward he would get if he helped. If he brought this world to its true ending, he would grant him his wish. Theoretically, in this world he is akin to a deity, and it will not be difficult for him to reward generously before returning to Earth. Can he get 10 billion? Why is it so small? Because he can add more. The guy can't get rid of the feeling that he's talking to a fraudster. But honestly, he's interested. He will grant any wish. He could ask for anything. But there is one wish that he would like to turn into life at any cost. If he is not lying, then he has a dream that he would have given up. I think he will never be able to fulfill it. It was then that he realized that this self-proclaimed deity knew more about him than he thought, knew what he regretted, and that he had long lived with that regret in his heart. He can turn a dream into reality. Well, as long as it lives in his heart, he can't give it up. Does the guy have so much strength? Why can't he reach the true ending himself in this world? His abilities are very limited. Here he is, just an ordinary person. Therefore, we need someone who would act on his behalf. Well, what will happen if the guy dies here? If he dies, then the Earth will die to him in peace. Life is a coin game. No save downloads, he thought. Then he understood perfectly well while playing the game, didn't he? True, the game was always like this, taking care of his comfort. But when it came to death, it was ruthless. If he wanted to return to Earth right now, then he would arrange everything here. Following his plan, he should have asked him about it immediately upon arrival. But there was a glitch, also that the guy has time to decide. If he helps him reach the true ending and gets the opportunity to fulfill his dream, or return to his usual peaceful life without putting himself at risk. The choice is only up to him, Mr. Typical Nerd. In another scenario, he turned immediately. But there are two things that prevent him from doing this. The first, the opportunity to fulfill a dream, and the second, not so impossible, right? Confidence, because he has already passed this game and knows almost everything about it. Go again, why not? The guy said that he agreed. He was going to get to this true ending, so he was counting on mutual help, and let him just try to forget about the promised desire. He instructed to sell all the magic crystals until morning, because this is an exchange and he needs to know where to drop them. But all the shops were already closed. The guy said that he should take his hands and feet and go sell them. When he sells them at night or at dawn, he doesn't care. He just has to finish it all by morning. For such a large number of black spider crystals, you can get a huge amount, even if you sell them at an average price. What is the hero going to do with this pile of money? Does he really need to answer that question? Meanwhile, in the Mercenary Guild, of course, he's talking about gacha. They'll start with 100 spins. In the morning, the tired director was sitting next to the carts with gold. His Highness and Lucas went into the bar. The guy wanted to enter first, on His Highness, kicked down the door with his foot, and greeted everyone there. The people there were angry at him and talked about dying, but he was their future employer and also a prince. Maybe there's someone shining here. It was a mercenary guild. A place where you can knock out new characters, of course, and the potential depends on the rank. In any case, he needed someone standing, and Jupiter greeted him at the Continental Crossroads Mercenary Guild. The woman was a light mage of the SR rank. The guy can't believe that this is a granny in the Mercenary Guild. He has never seen such a form before. What country does it belong to? It belonged to their ever-black empire, so he must not have recognized it, because this model was created several decades ago. The woman has spent 30 years serving her empire, even serving as a captain in the 2nd Mage Squad, and after retiring, she earns a living by hiring. Even after leaving, she is a model soldier. This is not quite true. It's just that it will be difficult to live on one pension. What brought His Highness here, she asked. Sure, to hire someone useful, but isn't he sure that it's not to find the bait that will die in his place? Lucas, his knight protector, was angry, and was already reaching for his sword, but the boy stopped him. Rumors of the battle on the front lines were already spreading everywhere, and it seemed that the prince had paid dearly for his incompetence. They may be worthless people who are paid to fight, but they are not idiots to dig their own graves. None of them would entrust their lives to a naive rookie commander. His Highness understands this, but asks to listen. Aren't they here to sell their lives in the end? Aren't they all in this place because they have no other way to make money better? And now they're afraid to do what they're here to do, and they say they're not idiots who dig their own graves. It sounds strange to him, to say the least, Lady Jupiter, he said to the woman. Her career is definitely spectacular, but she ended up getting fired for secretly embezzling military funds, isn't it? The girl was amazed at his knowledge. Isn't it the same as digging your own grave, apparently? She could not think that he knew her past. From corruption to smuggling goods, she was caught in disgrace, kicked out of her job, and yet she proudly continues to wear a military uniform. Isn't she ashamed? The epitome of corruption, a corrupt soldier rotten through and through, a disgraced veteran dismissed, a fighter with impressive abilities. The heroine looks more like a pirate than a warrior. It's all about this woman. But even if her career ended on such a bad note, she is still proud to be an imperial soldier. So she asks to watch herself. But how much does she need to offer for her mentioned pride? How much would it sell for? He asks how much it costs to make a hunting dog out of it. No matter what she looks like, she is quite rich, at least 100,000 a year. He suggested 200,000, and also double it. This is a high price for a mercenary, but he is the prince of the empire and the lord of this city. Moreover, he just sold all 400 magic crystals. Maybe it's not a waste at all. It's an opportunity to buy an SR rank. He is willing to pay any price. And also he will pay for her fear of death. He will give twice the original bid. Cowards who don't want to sell their lives can go home to mommy. Well, if they're real mercenaries looking to make big bucks, they should come to the empty field west of the intersection tonight. The next place he went was a church. Everything went well, however. A small scar remained. The saint was happy to help him. This is the hidden heroine of the R rank, the best healer, St. Margaret. Later, he will be able to recruit her by fulfilling certain conditions. But that's not why he's here today. She brought everyone who is free at the moment. Damien was there. He sees that he has adapted well, then they are leaving right now. They have a lot of things to do. Today will not be easy. That evening in the west of the intersection, coffins arrived from the forward base. The hero noticed a pendant lying next to one. The soldiers were lined up properly. The imperial flag was painted on every coffin, and the choir sang. In a city where death is so common and cheap, dignified funerals like these were rare sights. The most important thing is that the families of the victims were paid monetary compensation. People began to whisper shocked amounts. The news was passed from mouth to mouth and spread among the townspeople. Rumors always spread quickly. He is not going to embellish anything. Yes, this idea, but it is justified. Here on the front line, their struggle should be known as noble mission for humanity. He is the third prince and a newly unassigned lord. He greeted the people and said immediately, continuously on the front line, everyone will die. That woman also came, and he went on to say that every week there would be more graves here in the cemetery, and the choir would play again and again. He asked to be allowed to explain their deaths. They cost a lot more than their survival, funeral expenses, and compensation payments didn't hit the wallet so much. Almost half of the money earned from selling the crystals went to all this, but death shouldn't be cheap. Therefore, he will try to save all their lives, try to do everything possible to keep them alive and continue working on the front line. So even if they don't try to die so easily, they should live and shake as much money from him as possible, and not force him to spend money on their expensive funeral. Guns were fired into the sky. He said everything he wanted. Now I wonder how the townspeople will take it. Maybe an incompetent commander is making excuses or a vile lord is throwing money around. I don't care what they think of him. He will prove to them with results that he is worthy of being worth more than anyone else. It's time to clear the first location. After the funeral, he went to the backyard of the manor. The system asked if he wanted to activate the teleportation gate. Of course, yes. Lucas was shocked. What is this gate that will take them to the dungeon under the lake? This passage will lead them directly to the enemy base. Empire Defense combines two genres, tower defense and dungeon clearing. It's even written on the cover of the game. Locations with monsters attacking crossroads refers to tower defense. But in the breaks between passing locations, when monsters are not attacking, he can explore the dungeons under the lake and learn about the origin of monsters. This is clearing Danshi, so-called open world, an important mechanic for completing the game. As expected, you can activate it before completing the first location. It's a hell of a difficult game. But it's not so logical. Yes, he suffered a lot during the training. But now he has quite a good start. He has, consider the cheat character Demian and an AoE damager of the SR rank, Jupiter. In addition to the fact that he also has a lot of money, the passage seems to be a feasible task, very feasible. The prince explained the rules of the game to Lucas and said that they were going to scout the enemy base before the next location. Lucas must have been the one who had the most questions. The prince he had served all his life had suddenly changed, and also knew about the structure of the city and the location of the dungeon. despite being in this city for the first time. It's enough to arouse suspicion, but Lucas silently continued to follow his orders. It's strange enough. Isn't there something he wants to ask? But he just follows his orders. He has no questions. He is his shield and sword. He kills and protects on his orders. The hero can't believe that he has no questions, but Lucas says that he trusts him, and it seems that this loyalty is stronger than doubts. A little later, he will definitely reward him handsomely. Whether his partner is ready to enter hell with him, he will gladly follow the hero straight to hell, Your Highness. They teleported. Characters can be enhanced with equipment. Equipment can be obtained in dungeons or made in the forge. Our hero was very angry when the pop-up windows with tips stop. It's too late to pretend to be a caring game. They were at the site of the Black Lake, the source of monsters, the hell that creates nightmares, the dungeon located on the southern edge of the world. Then living armor appeared out of the water. Why? Why them? He didn't care who he met in the first location with goblins, mermaids, or live wyverns. There were so many low-level monsters, but why did he get the only ones he wanted to avoid? It's all his luck, and here are the monsters that they have to finish off again. Updated information about the opponents. There were a whole 1,000 of them. His Highness turned pale, probably not feeling well. But I think he already said it. I don't want to repeat it in training, but it's very bad for them. That's how many times he started the game from the very beginning. But there were different reasons. But if at the very beginning he was waiting for live armor, he reset the game without hesitation. Live armor fully corresponds to its name. Only a ghost is hidden under the armor. This means that this type of monster is extremely resistant to physical attacks. It becomes easier to fight them by the second half of the game, when the hero has a lot of different equipment, but so far everything is very, very bad. It felt like he was being bullied, like someone was deliberately interfering with the game. It was 3 days before the opening of the first location. They need to leave. There is no other choice but to do everything in their power to protect. He ran to Eider and asked what the state of the city's military strength was in total. They had 526 people capable of standing on the front lines. How could he make 100 pools in a row and only get 500 people? During the training of most of their soldiers, you made the hero very angry, but they have already recruited all the mercenaries who came to their city. There is no way they can accept more. Unfortunately, this is within the capabilities of the city. When you need to send word to other cities and bring more soldiers here, let them say that they will double the usual rate. The Imperial Palace needs to be dispatched too, and let them tell you that the monsters have begun to awaken and are asking for as many reinforcements as possible. If they ask for reinforcements from the Empire now, then a devastating event will occur later in the game. But what can he do because he must survive? He asks that all the carpenters, masons, blacksmiths, and alchemists in the city be gathered to work in their interests. If he does, the production of magic stones will stop. The city is about to be pulverized, and he is worried about the production of pebbles. The current difficulty level of the game, full of ADAs, he couldn't decide, but he doesn't think he has time to wait any further. The harder the game, the more changes he needs to introduce. That's why he decided to take the risk. He decided to become a rookie commander. He had a strange feeling. A 50% debuff was applied to growth stats, and a 50% debuff would also be applied to the item's proficiency skill. Are they kidding me? The prince shouted. Why did they give him a bunch of debuffs? He got different skills: attack totem, super buffer, main order, team synergy. System windows appeared in front of him. He can buff all his soldiers, it turns out. Even if he just stands on the field, everyone's attack and defense increases. Now he understands why he was buffed. Honestly, it's impressive. The synergy of the team is an advantage of the commander class. Depending on the combination of classes of team members, they will receive different bonuses. A certain system of interconnection of party classes, for a gamer like him, this class is ideal. The next day, the hero asked Eider to explain what happened. The fact is that no one responded to their orders, and he was in a hurry to bring only the Union leaders. In fact, he kidnapped them. The leaders were indignant. The first was the leader of the blacksmiths, the other of the carpenters, the third of the masons, and the fourth of the alchemists. Now they're all mad at the prince. Their veins are all over the place, and they should have apologized, but all he said was that they wanted to die. Where are they, and how dare they yell at him at the top of their lungs? He is their prince and lord. If he calls, they must leave all their business and run here on all fours. How dare they hurt his feelings, whether they really want to give up their lives or not? They apologized for the first time. The prince is their lord, which is a rare occasion when it's nice to be Ash, and then the negotiations went like clockwork. He's offering them 20% of all the magic stones that the army will collect, at a price below the market value. The possibility of directly purchasing the stones would be beneficial for them, wouldn't it? So we need to establish a trade relationship. In return, whenever he orders military equipment to be manufactured first, of course he will pay fairly based on performance. He asks if this is a good deal for all of them. Using money and power, he managed to persuade them. At the moment, negotiations are the only thing that he can do. Does it make him a materialist? But what else is left, so there is nothing more reliable in the world than money. There are 2 days and 13 hours left before the first location. Lucas has probably already told them everything. 1,000 living armors are moving towards the city. They will arrive in about 2 days. He can tell from their faces that everything is going to be very bad. But then what do you need to do, everyone? That you can also listen to it carefully. The guy will give his best. The soldiers will make mistakes. You need to lead them. Although Lilia was not in the best condition, he is very sorry. But right now they need her more than ever, of course. She will not be on the front line, so do not worry. She will be responsible for the water artifact. He once again apologized, but can't fire it. She is a civil servant, which means she will work all her life. Then Jupiter asked about the salary. If she shows a good result, she can increase, right? What a money-mad granny. She's crazy about money, especially gold, just like in the game, of course. Depending on the effort involved, the salary can increase. Then he should think in advance where to get so much money to pay her salary next year. There is no other mercenary that would work harder worked in the name of money. She was the captain of a special unit. Eider had prepared something especially for Damien. It was a crossbow. He's a long-range shooter. Although his posture gave off some uncertainty, judging by how he handled the cannon back then, he should be fine. And where are his glasses? Doesn't he wear them anymore? His eyes really see perfectly. He doesn't need them anymore. He used to wear them to make his vision worse. But now the Emperor needs his eyes, and he's not going to wear them anymore. It was a relief for the director. He was so worried that there would be someone else with glasses, the hero told him. Stand in silence. After discussing the strategy at the south wall of the intersection, he found out about the condition of the walls. But the restoration of them was neglected for a long time, so the condition is not the best. So he knows the fort well. He turned to the director. Isn't the repair of the walls the basis of the basics? How could he allow this? There was no money. The fewer monsters that appeared. The fewer stones that could be obtained. The previous city lord had reduced their budget. Wasn't this fort built primarily to deter monsters? The fort's function has been reduced due to reduced revenue. How contradictory. It doesn't care how much money or materials they spend. You need to strengthen and restore the wall so that it looks like it's already too much. You need to start quickly. The monsters will not make a mess. Meanwhile, in the workshop for the next 2 days, the guys have to make walls. Yes, he said the walls are so high, they also block the path. The commander-in-chief apologized, but the monsters will easily break through the pathetic wooden walls. He doesn't need them, some mega-strong ones to hold back the enemy. He just needs to do as he says. He just needs wooden walls, the widest and tallest that have ever been made. During the remaining 2 days, they made the necessary preparations. Time flew by in the blink of an eye on the south wall of the intersection. One of the caretakers noticed the monsters. They were approaching. There was nothing to be afraid of. They were just a bunch of hopeless armor, but this was not the case at all. Live armor, the worst monsters you can encounter in the first half of the game. They are the strongest army in the southern part of the Empire, which is not true again. In fact, they are just a scattered group of mercenaries, consisting of pensioners and novice amateurs. The water magic was ready and the equipment was in excellent condition, and again untrue, no matter how much money is false, they will never be fully ready. They would easily stop them, the prince said. There was no reason to worry, but he was trying his best to convince them otherwise, so he shouted at the top of his voice to follow his instructions. Then tonight they'll raise their glasses to victory on this field, just one worried man. He said he was leaving it to Jupiter. Half of their power at this stage depends only on her. It's time to go recruits, she said. The light mage he paid a lot of money for went on the offensive. All the monsters had one common goal, to kill people who met on the way. If there are no obstacles, they will try to get as close to people as possible. In other words, it is obvious which way they will move, so the traps work perfectly. They didn't have time to get them deep enough, and it worked pretty well as it was. Now it's time. Jupiter. Let her earn more money. She used the lightning zone skill. She shouted out while they were staring, "You need to respect your elders, monsters." This pattern, just the same, marked Jupiter. Today for dinner, there will be fried armor. The main thing is not to choke. She used the second skill, Relightning. The first skill puts marks on enemies who have received damage, and the second one finishes the marked targets. This sight was amazing, but still, there were a whole 1,000 enemies. The attack just now was nothing but a small dent. He ordered Jupiter to retreat. She shouted to the new recruits, "Don't look back, but keep moving forward. Everything is still as planned." His Highness orders everyone to get ready. Just a little more, just a little more. They are moving towards the gate. Jupiter's team ran in. Well done, welcome. It looks like they're new to the world of damn walls. Now it's their turn or they'll destroy. Why does he ask everything and it's so obvious? If he sees a goal, he goes to it. Of course, this is true. If they completely blocked the way, they would easily destroy the walls. And now they have to crowd in a small space. The hero ordered to prepare for shooting. Their ranks are getting narrower. They lose mobility. They have waited so long for this. Open fire and do not save charges. Monsters flew fireballs, the basis of the basics among the strategy of defensive games. This is the control of the path, the death zone. He ordered to continue shooting. The monsters weren't even able to overcome this point. If this continued, wouldn't it be enough? Not at all, not yet. It can't end so easily. Here they are strong. The hero expected this, so he prepared. He shouted to Lilia to activate the gravity field artifact. She immediately did so. It activated, their movement slowed down. He told Lucas to act. Ballistarius, get ready and aim for the soul core. They fired several rounds. You need to increase the damage done using crossfire and finish them off with an artifact and ballistae. All that is fine and according to plan. But then he was informed that the monster was going around the walls. How is this possible? He thought that this could happen, but more people came up with it than he expected. He ordered Jupiter that those living armor that came from the right side would be on her. You need to drive them away with tactics. Hit and run. They immediately stepped into battle. She was doing a great job with the block on the other side. Now you need to deal with the armor on the other side. Now it was Damien's turn to shoot the monsters that came from the left, he ordered him. He just pulled the trigger and hit the head of the eye clearly from 1,000 miles away. To think that they could pierce the core of the soul with a normal arrow. He was still a cheat skill after all. Killbox in the center, Jupiter on the right, Damien on the left. The number of defeated has exceeded 450. They are really approaching 500. At this rate, no difficulties should arise until the boss declares himself nice to see that their preparations were bought. But what is it? Souls flew up. There was nothing like this in the game. The number of defeated exceeded 500. This is the boss of the army of living armor, the Ghost Knight. He gives strength to the Legion. The Legion, in principle, is strong in itself. But even after dealing with it, they are also waiting for the boss. After all, they only finished half of it. Why did he appear so soon? The Ghost Knight didn't show any resistance. Didn't apply a debuff. Didn't attack, just floated in the air doing nothing. However, this is not just a game. This is a reality, just because of the appearance of a huge monster in the sky. The soldiers panicked. This is the difference between the usual war and the one against monsters. The second awakens a primal fear of the incarnation of supernatural ugliness. The appearance of the boss monster scares the soldiers, as if putting the remnants of the front line on their knees. Moreover, not only people are terrified, but also animals. The horse Jupiter got excited and threw it to the ground, thereby wounding it. These monsters rushed forward to kill the person right under their noses, that is, Jupiter. Before the magician came people with swords and shields. They are obliged to protect her. Jupiter is a key element of the first location, and her party is in danger. Lucas said that they should deploy cannons and artillery to support the Jupiter squad. But this should not be done in any case. If the killbox disappears, enemies leaking through the walls. More than that. The soldiers in a panic because of the boss' appearance, the cannons and ballistae stopped firing. The already poor defense momentarily weakened. You need to focus on restoring the killbox. All the soldiers went crazy. He apologized to Jupiter and asked her to hold on. Jupiter woke up and saw blood on her hands, and also did not understand where she was climbing in her years. A man was shouting at her and trying to bring her to her senses. They need to leave. What a terrible situation they are in. It looks like she doesn't have time to lie on the ground for mother. The rescue team will be there soon. Just need to hold on until then. The man hit the monster's face. But why is he still standing up after hitting it with such a weapon? A new recruit from behind, a woman shouted at him. But he was stabbed with a sword. He was sure that he had killed everyone nearby. But this was not the case at all. Jupiter was very angry. She would deep fry them all, but she could not control the magic behind the wounds. Her entire team was attacked by monsters and killed. One of the guys was so scared that he ran away, but the monster's arrow caught up with him. The tiny defense line of just a few men was destroyed in an instant, and Jupiter could smell the living armor in front of her, the stench of rusty armor and blooming water, the smell of drowned men. They should have stayed at the bottom of the lake. Why couldn't they just let Granny make some easy money? She said very weakly after her attack, even less than a quarter of what she could have done before and now. A boy ran up and told her to run. At least one of them should survive. She would buy time for him so that he could escape. But he couldn't afford it. Staying was the best option for him. She was a mage. The second rule of mercenary survival was to always stay close to a mage from the squad. He had a much better chance of surviving by staying close to her than running away without even having a horse. The little one's strategy was effective. He didn't kill the living armor, but pushed it away with his spear. He held it in any way possible until it was ready for the next spell. Damien was providing support while inside the castle walls, but it wasn't enough to stop all the enemies. By the time Jupiter was able to gather enough energy to create a single lightning bolt, the brave boy's body was pierced by spears, which angered her. She would have hit the monsters if she could gather enough. The amount of energy a few seconds faster would have saved the little guy. She was too old to take death personally, and she told the recruit what the first rule of a mercenary's survival was: not to take on a job that paid a suspiciously large sum of money. Despite all his rules for survival are wrong, he will not be able to make it as a mercenary if he follows them. If he wants to be rich, if he wants fame, you only need to take on the work that is very dangerous and for which they also pay a lot of money. You need to stay as far away from the mages as possible, because Mac will take all the responsibility. First of all, if he wanted to survive, he should never have been a mercenary. She doesn't even have enough energy to light a cigarette, and she thought life would be easier after she gets a high salary. And it will end like this. She was looking at the army of monsters in front of her, but then Lucas appeared with his army to protect her. Some time ago, the wall of the fortress. He said that Jupiter could not help now and shouted at the soldiers that they were afraid from the same size of the monster. The knights shouted in all voices. No fear. Now he was afraid of what was happening. Could it be the indomitable commander's skill that grants all soldiers within a 10-meter radius immunity with a mental debuff? He remembered that he can calm down all the soldiers and restore the kill box, so he must lead the rescue team, open the gate and save the Jupiter squad. He had to go to the Valley of Death and save his comrade. An incredibly stupid order. But he didn't even hesitate. The prince trusts him. He told all the soldiers to come to their senses quickly. While Lucas and his team fought off the monsters, he told the woman to hold on tight, then grabbed her, put her on a horse and rushed back. While they were driving, a woman offered to introduce him to her granddaughter. She is a lovely girl, if she has the power to joke. It is better to use them to restore her magic. There are still a lot of monsters. He was very nice to his master, but when the prince is not around, it gets colder than ice in any case. She thanked him for saving her. No need to thank him. He just follows His Highness' orders, and also apologized for not being able to arrive earlier. They'll regret it after they've dealt with all the monsters. It's been a long time since she was this angry. Thanks to the indomitable commander's skill, Killbox was restored in time. They managed to return unharmed. Well, he lost 4 precious heroes, Ron, Pecker, Gia, and Tane, because he was too confident in his game experience and where he had to manage the soldiers. Mentalka. There were similar states like fear and distraction. But here, the feelings of the soldiers are more diverse and complex. He never expected that the horses would also get scared. He needs to take into account more variables. Since this is reality, the flames that spread because of the artillery cannons are also the result of reality. The killbox is falling apart. It looked like he was going to have to repel it all along the ramparts, and he wanted to end it all with a single artillery barrage. Fortunately, there aren't many monsters left. Their goal is definitely doable. The flames of battle are still under his control. Lucas said that he had delivered Dame Jupiter. He was reluctant to add the title to the name Jupiter. He did not want to approve of her because of the reason for the dismissal, but it was right of him to show respect. His Highness was glad that she was alive. She was ashamed that she was an old hag who made so many mistakes, and because of her, the recruits died in vain. It's a shame. She couldn't have known that a monster would suddenly appear in the sky, just like she didn't know that the horses would go crazy. It wasn't her fault, the girl still insisted. Standing on the battlefield at her age and with her experience under her belt, she had to react properly. So she will pay for it. She will be the one to take this monster's head off. Focus on her recovery, the man told her. Her strength will be needed very soon. Killbox no longer performs its function. You need to stop firing. He told Demian to rest, but the enemies are approaching. A bigger fish has appeared for him, so you need to rest and recover a little. The enemy reached the walls of the fortress. Realizing that the walls of the front could not be destroyed, they began to climb them. His Highness ordered to prepare for close combat. The close combat team went ahead. A battle without magic based solely on physical strength. This is the beginning of a real war. He said to drop stones on the climbing monsters. These pieces of steel stones and other debris left after reinforcement and which he piled at the top of the front, so that many of the living armor that was thrown on the ground broke on it. But some managed to get up again after falling. How annoying this will to live. They kept climbing despite all the damage falling on them, so the prince ordered them to shoot down their copies. It's time to reorganize Party Jupiter, the main link. The defenders of the team's territory don't lose morale, and the attack power of the elements has increased by 20%, which is great, and now the enemies are already here. From now on, the battle ceases to be one-sided. Will the soldiers cope? Lucas will destroy the monsters. Their task is to stand still and restrain them. The knights obeyed him. It's not even about whether they can do it or not. They have to do it to survive. All the soldiers have to be stronger. They have no choice but to fall, get up again, fight and win. He shouted to Lily to activate the artifact on haste. She activated the artifact on speed. The movement speed of all comrades was increased by 5% in minutes. In addition, equipped skills will help them in close combat. They must push monsters and throw them down. You need to try. One of the skills of Lucas is Iron will strike. The more enemies he kills, the stronger he becomes. Lucas alone dealt with enemies. But this is not enough. They lose. They have wounded. You need to raise such soldiers. Unlike living armor, the number of wounded on their side only grew. Demian wanted to return to the front line, but he had to use his power against the boss just like Jupiter. So what should they do? There had to be a way to reduce the number of casualties and get rid of the remaining enemies. Lilia used her magic. It amazed the commander-in-chief. Is she a mage? She's always been one. It's amazing. He'll promote her later. She didn't want it, just asked her to be fired. It's like using fire. She spent a lot of mana so drained, he will also pay her a solid bonus. You need to push, and the girl just wants to retire. Her mom is over. You need to do it for the last time. 20 prowess from synergy plus 5 from the attack totem. And that fire magic was increased by 25%. He was glad she was doing fine. Flamethrower, one more time. At least he could address her as a human. So the soldiers held the enemy back. Lucas cut them down with his sword, and Lily burned them to hell with her fire. Everyone hoped this was the end. They stopped them. They did it. They did it. This wasn't the end of it, His Highness told them. They couldn't let their guard down. There was still one left. The boss had appeared in front of them. Damn her reality, if that even made sense. It couldn't possibly be the boss of the first Loki. The Highness ordered himself not to dare to be afraid. This is only the boss of the first stage, and he is only level 25. He ordered them to fire their guns and not save their charges, but keep firing, hurry up, until he reached the fort walls. Despite the flames that the Ghost Knight was engulfed in, he took a step forward. This monster's tenacity is not lacking. He shouted to the girl to activate the third artifact. She did it. The R-rank artifact multiplier is able to increase the effect of the character's magic spells by 100%. This was done for Jupiter. The spell effect was increased for her. Weird. Just like in her golden days, she has to do it like the last time she hits a breastplate. She told the prince to be careful. No one will pay him compensation if he gets an electric shock. She struck a blow to the core of the soul. He shouted to Demian to shoot as quickly as possible. They hit the bullseye. It was a great shot, that's all, but how could it not be enough? If he brought down his sword, he would destroy the walls of the fort. OK yelled for Jupiter to strike again, raising her weapon so high in the middle of a thunderstorm that the monster was just about to hit it with lightning. The blow pierced right through him, but the sword fell right on the castle walls. Luca asked, "Is everything okay with His Highness?" But the wall was terrible. It collapsed. But they finally managed to kill the Ghost Knight monster. "Isn't it dangerous here?" "Everything is fine," he replied to his knight. He recognized this pattern. This is what a flash of anger looks like from the realization of imminent death. Display of fear, confusion, and madness. This attack does not deal damage, but it can drive you crazy. Here begins the territory of people. So the monster should get out. He activated the Indomitable Commander skill and turned it only into dust. Everyone wondered where such a huge monster went. This is all the ghosts the prince got rid of from them. Is this the end? The sky brightened. They won and managed to survive. They will continue to win. terrorizing the monsters with their vitality. The fear that could be read in the soldier's eyes began to recede. He saw Lucas laughing confidently with the joy of victory. No idea if it was due to his passive skill or the ability to interpret speeches. But it was still nice. They will destroy all the monsters and live. All he did was shout from the bottom of his heart. For protecting the location, he got a gift. It was Jupiter. In the evening after the battle, a festival unfolded in the center of the city. Everyone was congratulated on defending the fort from terrible monsters in armor and a well-deserved victory. They raised their mugs, let them drink as much as they liked. Today, Prin pays for everything. The festival began, everyone was singing, music was playing, food was being prepared, as well as delicious meat. They were playing games. Lucas came up to His Highness and asked him how he was feeling because he hadn't eaten a crumb today. Maybe he would eat something. His expression doesn't match the commander who led him to victory. He stopped 1,000 living armors without much loss. And Lucas thinks he should be a little happier. It wasn't a big loss, of course, but he decided to take a sip and immediately spat it out all right. It just didn't taste like what he expected. It wasn't beer, it was at least 20 degrees. Everything was fine and there weren't any big losses. But that doesn't mean there weren't any at all. If someone dies, I don't care how much they end up losing. Every life is important and every person is valuable. Of course, he knows they can't keep everyone safe in such a brutal game, which is presumptuous. But if he'd been a little more careful, they wouldn't have died. This fight was different from training and he could change the outcome. He knew that and it hurt more. Still, they did a great job. Don't be so heartbroken. That's what he thinks. But whatever he says, his words won't make his regret disappear. This Victory Day celebration, if His Highness is unhappy, then so are the soldiers. You need to smile at least now to rejoice with them. This is also the work of the commander. Smiling is also the command of the commander. Adar fully agreed with this, but his presence scared the hero very much. Olaki is certainly important, but they must find time to celebrate the victory. He came to him with a tray, since it is harmful to eat meat alone. He also brought vegetables, but the hero did not eat meat yet. The director congratulated him on clearing the location. Although it was not easy, he coped. We need to continue in the same spirit. His Highness eats vegetables. What's he doing? Eider shouted that His Highness didn't eat anything, and now he's choking on vegetables. People ran up to him. They can't believe that they forced the prince, who, according to rumors, eats only meat to eat vegetables. What are these rumors like? How did this Ash live at all? The man shouted over everyone to bring His Highness meat and alcohol. Not to forget how it came to this. He planned to review the battle somewhere in a dark and quiet corner today. Lily came to him in a wheelchair when she was so drunk, sobbing and begging him to fire her. He smiled back at her and told her to work hard. No one gets fired in such difficult times. He'd rather pay her more. She was taken away by the men in black deeds, and she wanted to quit so badly. But he was glad they would take her away and put her to bed. Damien was sitting next to the prince. The water was slightly bitter, but it wasn't water at all. Who was able to get the child to drink? It was Jupiter. What did she do to the boy? He's still not a boy, but a full-fledged mercenary should know how to drink and smoke and spend money. He's old enough to be her grandson, so she'll teach him everything. Why teach your grandson such things? She is a terrible adult. The boy put his head on the prince's shoulder. The prince smiled and said, how dare he put his hand, or rather his head on the prince. He became much braver, much. When a guy is left alone, the face of a dead friend constantly appears in front of his eyes. He can't stop thinking about that day. The feeling of guilt for what he is living now torments his heart. But when he is next to him with His Highness, it is much easier. That's why it's easier for him to be around His Highness. It's not because he's special, it's just a passive skill. But the prince will tell him about that later. Jupiter asked why she felt that her magic was stronger under his command. Was it because of his leadership streak? If only it's all his skills and synergy. It's all a buff for 25. Well, the hero can't tell her about it. And when Lucas is next to His Highness, his doubts disappear. His body becomes light and fast. It's all His Highness's noble character and talent for leading people. So that's why he's always rubbing himself off. I guess it's true. Which means I guess that's not the answer for an educated knight. They raised their mugs for the dead, for the survivors, and for His Highness the Prince. There were a lot of people standing next to him, which wasn't the case. His mug was still full, but he was just not feeling well. They apologized because people are bad at raising their spirits. They were able to make Prince Ash, who is famous for his ability to drink for weeks, not drink a single mug today. Again, what kind of reputation did he have? What kind of life did he lead? This God-forsaken prince, people shouted that they deserved to die. He told them to stop reacting so violently to everything. Stop and get up, then he should drink. What should he do with them? He drank a whole mug since they forced their commander and lord to drink. Then he hopes that this will follow. Before he finished, everyone filled their mugs and said that they needed to get drunk to death. As long as the moon shone brightly in the night sky, they ate and drank, sang and chatted all night, and the victory continued. He went to his room and was drunk before going to bed. You need to open the chests received as a reward for cleaning. He decided to open one of them, find out what color it was. It was SSR rank. Not only was the rank high, but it also turned out to be the maximum level. But out of all the possible SR rank items and their variety, he got Lucky Hit, a consolation item. The damage dealt by these gloves is determined by roulette. Sometimes he used them on streams to amuse the audience, but in reality, they are absolutely useless. But it's still something he can't throw them away or give them to someone else so pleasant to the touch. It's because of their rarity. Maybe you can still hit the jackpot at roulette when you need it. You need to be optimistic. What an optimist. There are so many cheat items that could make his life easier if he had them. Despite receiving a rare gold item, he tossed and turned all night and barely fell asleep in the morning. The next day, in the late afternoon, Lucas came to him. It seems that he should also have rested today. But being his night, how could he? The guy did not finish here. It seems that he also drank a lot yesterday. Later, the director came up and wished everyone a good morning. Why does this bespectacled man always have full energy? He brought warm water with honey. After it, the guys came straight to life. It's time to start preparing for the next stage. In the current state, they will not stop wild animals. What can we say about monsters? How long will it take to repair? More than 2 weeks, the builder said. First, you need to raise this sword. There were 9 days and 20 hours left before the start of the second location. The soldiers who were not injured will help with the restoration of the walls. Starting tomorrow, His Highness said, and added that you need to try to finish as quickly as possible. With reinforcements, it was simple. The neighboring city would send soldiers soon, and the soldiers sent to the central area would return tomorrow. He would have to wait until tomorrow to see any progress. He could sort out everything else, but he wasn't responsible for the reinforcement squad, and he could only pray that they got there safely. When the news comes, Iber will have to tell him, and with Lucas, they will have to do everything in their power, dungeon, to destroy the hotbed of monsters. It's just like back then. Target, Black Lake. Yes, but they're going under the lake with all the other team members. It's time to change the game genre from tower defense to attack to dungeon. That was all the news today, he said. Take care and see them tomorrow. As a member of the team, he said that they were going on an expedition tomorrow morning. It would be easier if they saw everything with their own eyes than he would explain 100 times. He once again apologized to the crying Lily. Nothing can be helped. The dungeon is counting on 5. He asked Eider to prepare supplies for the expedition, namely canned food, camping supplies, potions, as well as lanterns and torches, anything that can light up in general. The next morning in the backyard of the Lord's Manor, Jupiter thought it was something serious. So where are they going? Soon the guys will see for themselves. His Highness opened a teleport. It was magic, teleportation. It disappeared several hundred years ago. How is this possible? They will find out everything in the course of events. They are going to teleport to the Nest Island located under the Black Lake. There is their kingdom. They explore that place to find out why the monsters come from there. This is the only way to stop the invasion, forever. Destroy the source of evil spirits. This is the true goal of the game. He would instruct them on the way, so let them follow him. The knight wanted to go first, but there was no need to worry so much. Teleportation was loaded. There was advice that characters strengthen. I increase my level. They can level up by gaining experience. Experience can be obtained for all types of battles. Can I give some useful advice instead of the completely obvious one? This place is indeed the same lake. The prince asked if Jupiter had been here before. She was here 20 years ago when the king's soldiers were still at the crossroads. They were ordered to fill up the lake with earth. They tried to fill up the huge lake with earth. Just like 20 years ago, there was a fool at the helm. The entire magic squad was involved in this action. They were trying to use their magic to raise the earth and fill the lake, but of course it was impossible. No matter how many rocks and earth they lowered to the bottom, the lake absorbed them. Among the royal army, rumors spread everywhere that the lake was connected to hell itself. After the first week of attempts, Monsters began to appear in droves. The army retreated. The plan failed. It was the first time it had been so close to this lake for a long time. You need to be alert because they're going to go deeper. They can't go back until they open the next installation point. Do they really want to go there? It looks like they're trying to intimidate him. He thinks the guy has played this game once or twice. This is the entrance to the dungeon. The guy jumped into the water. He entered the dungeon. This was the reason for the defeat: inattention. In any situation, you need to be on your guard. It was dark, but that was his first impression. Darkness. He couldn't see anything, couldn't hear any sounds, as if the darkness itself was getting closer. The night looked for him everywhere. He said that there was no need to worry. You need to stay calm and turn on the light. They got a better look at the place. What it was: a realm lost among the waters, a lake realm, a dungeon located under the water, and a nest of monsters that they gradually had to clean up thoroughly. He can breathe and move around without any problems. It seems like it's the ancient magic that shrouds the realm. How can something so huge be hiding under the lake? Besides, how can they move around so calmly? Lily asked. The knight said to sit quietly. Someone came out to them. It was a man in black robes and with very long hair, as well as a sword on his back. The prince calmed everyone down. No need to be so nervous. It's not an enemy. It's their first time entering the dungeon, so it must be an NPC. Treasure hunters looking for something to profit from in the Lake Kingdom, he said. There is nothing in this place that they are looking for. They need to return to the surface while they can. It was her. The hero had never seen her before. Did this NPC exist in the game? In Hell, which is an underwater dungeon, there are about 100 of them. One random NPC should act as a guide, but he started the game again 742 times. This girl never appeared. So they came from the surface to stir up this hornet's nest. The girl said nothing in response. Because of the monsters that come out of there, the world on the other side of the water surface is suffering. They are going to end it. The Lake Kingdom has long been plunged into a nightmare, and no one will ever be able to wake it up. Countless heroes and great warriors have tried to remove the curse from this place, but it is better not to enter the darkness, but to return before it is too late, before the abyss swallows them up, and before they go mad with regret. If such words really meant that he was going to go back, it seems to him that he would have left the game long ago and returned to his own world. He's the Lord of Crossroads, a fortress city that exists to stop monsters, and is responsible for protecting the fort. No, protecting humanity. The darkness doesn't scare him. They have to go in and destroy this damn hotbed. That was why they had come all this way. But the doors were locked and they couldn't get in even if they wanted to. If there was another way, could he ask her to help? The girl agreed, curious to see if their words were really full of courage or just reckless bravado. She said, "Follow her. She will hold." The hero asked how she could be addressed if she would say her name, but she didn't remember it. But if it's so important to the guys, they can call her Nameless. They've been following her along the walls for some time now. How can they just go after someone like that? That's for sure. It would turn out to be a trap, Lucas swore. Everything would be fine, you just had to go. He was like a cuckoo clock, cuckooing every 5 minutes. The girl said that by entering here, they would be able to get inside. It was a sewer system. It was slippery. You need to be careful. With Humpback in the back, driving through a narrow tunnel for 5 minutes, they arrived at the first sewer area. They reached the dungeon of the Lake Kingdom. This is where all the sewers connect. The pipes are dry. You can't even hear the water dripping. This is a safe zone where the monster can't get in next time. They can start right from here. Lilia cried and swore that she needed to go home. She thought that they were dragging so much food with them to turn around here. Nameless would not go any further from her. They were left to their own devices. The prince thanked her for her help, and she warned once again that the Lake Kingdom was already completely consumed by a nightmare. The further they go, the thicker the darkness will become, and the monsters are stronger. If her words still do not weigh anything, she will give a little advice: never turn out the lights. Everyone said nothing in response. Let their path be blessed. Who is she? How can she live in an underwater realm? No one has a clue. The darkness is strange, Damien said. Even his eyes will not allow you to look deep. It's like she's alive. But how does that girl move in the dark without a torch? His Highness doesn't have an answer. This dungeon is full of secrets, and even he, the one who managed to pass the game, doesn't know them all. The only thing he is sure of is that they will meet her under the lake again, as enemies or as friends. Once equipped at the checkpoint, it was time to move out. The first area of the sewer, given the level of their team. There should be no problems with cleaning, so go ahead. The knight asked how long they should go down this corridor. Not at all. The main structure of the dungeon is the rooms and the passages connecting them. In the rooms you can find some items, or fight with enemies, or talk to NPCs. In the first one, huge sewer rats are waiting for them. The enemy is not difficult, but because of the number they cannot relax. Lily was very scared. But what kind of coward is she? The knight went ahead. You need to keep your distance to kill only those who get close. He told Demian that the skulls are extremely strong. You need to aim for the eyes or neck. And Jupiter, so as not to waste mana, only attack those who broke through Lucas's defense. And he, perhaps, will just look. Everyone did a great job, making a total of 30. You need to collect magic crystals, don't you? No, they're low level. Wait, 30 grand. The system said 14. The guy turned around, and there was another huge rat flying at him from the left. He managed to fend off her attack with a lucky strike. A number above 100 is very rare. The knight asked if everything was fine and what it was. How could he kill the monster in one hit? He replied that it's a prince's strike. When the royals are in danger, they can activate superpower. Sometimes like this, please. They just have to invite this lie and move on. Everyone else, with the exception of Lucas, was still hesitant, but they moved on anyway. It was a good thing they were smart. In the second room of the sewer, the room was empty. There must be something hidden here. You need to search carefully. Damien found something. It was a treasure chest. Great job. But you have to be careful. This could turn out to be a trap disguised as, before Jupiter could finish speaking, the passive talent gold rush was activated. What a greedy granny. And if it was a trap, phew, it was also a chest. She apologized. Whenever she feels money, she can't control herself. She gives this chest to His Highness. Does she think he can't see what's in her pocket? The third room was also easily enlisted. They finally reached the main room. The next room is the boss room. After they're done with it, they can come back to mine, so we'll have to try harder. They opened the door. There was a terrible smell of blood. There was no end to the rats. He had to kill the rats. He had to exterminate the rats. He had to get rid of them, said the huge rat, who was supposed to restore the Lake Kingdom to its original appearance. Isn't it a monster, but it speaks like a human? It turned around at them. Some rat is still alive, no matter how many rats it kills. They will still continue to climb. Terrible rats, the monster shouted angrily at them. It was the sewer manager, Peleg. Why does this rat have a human name? He will kill them all, the rat screamed. It can't be that. He has to do something. Lily was very scared of the rat and attacked it with fire, which made her even more angry. Here is her stop, Jupiter said. Sweet dreams. The rat kept saying that it should get rid of the rats. It was quite fast. Thanks to the joint work of two magicians, it was not difficult to deal with the boss. Its resistance to magic is almost zero. If they relied only on physical damage, there would be some difficulties. Lily clung to the prince because they're already home, aren't they? Almost. Isn't it scary? The room is filled with dead rats. How can it not be scary? There was a chest for clearing the boss's room. His Highness immediately told Lucas to keep Jupiter. There was a rat-cutter sword in the walleye. It would definitely come in handy. The prince gave the sword to Lucas. It's not good enough to replace his usual sword, but let him keep it with him. They'll use it. There was something else in the chest, a summoning scroll. It's an automatic defensive turret. It's a guaranteed drop-down item of the first area. It's a lie if you say you didn't come here for it. All the rewards were collected. There was no point in staying here any longer. Lily was very happy that they were finally getting out of here. The first area of the sewer was cleared. After going down the corridor connected to the boss room, the sewer ran out. Here begins the inner part of the Lake Kingdom, the second area, a hidden alley. Everything was so developed, it looked like the streets of a thriving city, since even a back alley looked like this. A city that has become the epitome of magical society, a true reflection of the stranded deep realm. But in this developed city there is no color at all, as well as not a single living soul. The city is mired in darkness. It is silent and dead. The second area, checkpoint, hidden lane, has been unlocked. They can't go outside of this area yet. In any case, he wasn't going to go any further today. Otherwise, they would have been left with horns and legs. Everyone did a good job. That's all for today. They teleported back to the manor's backyard. Well, the research was done, and he had received rewards for it. So, this is the last player, said the man in the middle of the dark city. He was the one who came all the way here. The man was wearing a mask. May they be forgiven for all their sins? It's all for the sake of the Lake Kingdom, he said, surrounded by rats. They were back. They had done a good job. Now they should all rest. Just think, such a huge city was hidden under the lake. Lily can't even imagine what happened to it. Moreover, the darkness was definitely unusual. They asked if there was anything to say to His Highness, not at the moment. And although he had completely completed the game, how and why the Lake Kingdom had become like this was not revealed to him, however. He has a hunch that he should go to the center of the city and reveal all its secrets. Well, they'll figure it out, they'll be fine together, but they don't think they'll be able to sleep properly tonight. They'll have to get drunk, Jupiter said. The girl was all for it. She thinks she won't sleep either if she doesn't drink something strong. It was amazing. Jupiter will take her to a nice place. Damien will return to the temple, still shivering from the darkness, thinking that if he prays, he will feel better. He and Lucas also need to rest. Is he still going to go down to the dungeon? Yes, but not before the next defensive battle. Don't they need to go scouting, find out which monster will attack next? They have already learned next time to fight. They will be against a squad of sewer rats. The Lake Kingdom is crawling with rats. First, they fill the research areas. Their population reaches the limit of numbers. There are too many of them. And then they crawl out of the dungeon and go to them. They were back, he called out to Eider. Had he prepared dinner and a warm bath? There are no reinforcements. The nearest central cities said that they will not be able to send troops. How did this happen? There is no point in continuing to talk about this topic. They will still not be able to solve the problem right now. They will deal with this tomorrow. They need to bring food as they are very hungry. What did he mean when he said that there are no reinforcements? Recently, a war broke out on the Western Front. Currently, the Empire is fighting the enemy. They are collecting all the free soldiers and sending them to the West. So reinforcements that they could not send to them? No. Something was definitely wrong. The Empire was always fighting wars regardless of the time of year or day. They were always at war with neighboring countries. But now they suddenly needed all the soldiers of the South. And surprisingly, at this very moment, when he was requesting reinforcements. What about the mercenaries then? Anyone got hired. They hire all comers. But there aren't many of them. Their last battle ended just a few days ago. It would be foolish to expect the mercenary guild to be replenished immediately. What should they do then? He won't understand why the headmaster is grinning, so let him tell them where to get the soldiers from. He actually has an idea. But the person who can help them is a pain in the ass. He believes that in the current situation, he cares what a pain he is. They should only care about the next battle. Let him lay out where to get the soldiers. If so, then let her follow him. No one knew where Secretary Ader was going. It turned out that they were going to the Last Lord. They were going to Margrave Cross. Who they are, in short, these are the Grafs that protect the border. They have more powers than ordinary Grafs because they are charged with protecting the front from enemies and natural disasters. In other words, they are not just nobles, they are military commanders who are also responsible for protecting the region. Since people started coming to the crossroads, Margrave Cross has been running everything here. The city was just named after him. The Cross family laid a road and built a fortress city at the top. It turned out to be a crossroads. He came from a noble family and defended this place for a long time, since its creation. But why did he leave his post? The southern front is a long way from the center, and to be honest, the Earl has more influence here than the Emperor himself. But Cross has stepped down as Lord and placed the city under the control of the center, so Ash has taken his place. He gave up the land, which was passed down from generation to generation. But why you can't tell it in a nutshell. It would be better if he heard about it firsthand. They came. Initially, this place was only a holiday home, however. After leaving office, the Count moved here permanently. You're sure someone lives there? The building looked abandoned, of course. He regularly sends out all sorts of important things. An elderly man came out on the porch and shouted, "Who dared to come here? Let them go away." He told them to get lost. His secretary ran out to meet him. He was very happy. They hadn't seen each other for a long time. Didn't he tell the secretary not to bring guests, especially those who were looking for him? He asked to speak with them just a little, and he introduced the new lord, His Highness Ash. The guy was happy to meet you. He is the youngest of the Emperor's sons, and the newly appointed Lord of the Crossroads. Even though he is Prince Tyrant, he can't have a bad relationship with the Count. It's a little awkward to say this formally, but it's the right thing to do, like a new generic talking to their boss. They had come to talk about a man, but they didn't even let him finish and told him to get lost. This was too much. The Everblake Empire. It was a state with a strict custom system, even if the Margrave ruled over these lands. How dare he disregard the formalities of talking to the prince? Oh, not to mention to throw him out. The prince furiously shouted whether he was being too bold with him. and asked to be reminded of the hierarchy. As strict an empire as he thinks it means to raise a gun against a member of the ruling family, it means that someone has definitely gone cuckoo, and crazy people should be avoided. This is a written truth. He shouted at him to leave before he used something else, and the hero said that he would come back and hope that next time they would be able to talk properly, even if they didn't have time to get close and leave the men alone. Margrave Cross, full name Charles Cross. He never appeared in the game Defense of the Empire. The reason he knows him, he is the father of the best tank in the game, Evangeline Cross. She has incredible skills and is one of the most popular SSR rank characters. And this old drunkard Naka has a good side. Maybe he can still get along with him since this old man can solve his problem. He has his own personal army, an elite squad of soldiers who are loyal only to him. If he could convince the Count, it would greatly help them with a problem. His Highness absolutely has to persuade him. But as a conversation is out of the question because he can't even meet him face to face, there is one way sometimes only a drunkard can understand another drunkard. He wants to lead a righteous and noble life, but this world does not allow him. It looks like the guy got tired of living. He came back. The old man shouted at him not to come here again. But what kind of cart was it? There was a lot of booze there. What the old man loves more than anything in the world. The hero is still a wild Lovelace who loves bacchanals. This is a shame for everyone and everywhere, such as he would never have come to the wilderness empty-handed, of course. He brought with him a lot of expensive booze. Muxchina's mouth watered, and he told her to come in quickly and not forget all this stuff with her. It's good that he is so unpredictable. It was terrible. He smelled really bad inside, but he's just a drinker. He's a complete alcoholic. It's been a while. He hasn't had a drink with anyone. The old man took out 2 glasses. Even if the house is full of pigsties, the glasses should be clean. Whether this is not a sign of respect for alcohol. The man opened the bottle, and what did they bring here? Whiskey of the first year of the Peacemaker. But it is priceless. Peacemaker, the second name of the current emperor. This means that this drink was made in the year of his coronation, and it also means that it is very expensive. The hero brought him this expensive drink, so let the old man treat him well. This is the meaning of this action. They drank as expected from the quality of the drink, even swallowed differently. How could he appreciate the taste of it if he drank it in one gulp like this? If he wants to compare it to the cheap drinks that he usually drinks, shouldn't he follow the same pattern? Which evaluation will be fair? True, the guy doesn't drink, so he can't say anyway. Count, they have something to discuss today. He didn't ask me for the topic. Just drink, let him leave if he doesn't want to talk about something else. Let the man at least give him something to eat. This old drunk drinks only on an empty stomach. He offered the guy dried fruits. He made them from fruits collected in his garden. If he looks out the window, he will see it right behind the pond, although it is small, but takes care of it as a kind of hobby. This is good. The guy tasted it and immediately spat out. Why is it so bitter and sour? In your opinion, he should eat it. But how dare he spit out something that a man has grown so hard? This is very rude. The man tried it himself. He also spat it out for so long. It tasted like garbage. He gives it to the guy, but why does he give it if he can't even eat it himself? If he could have eaten it himself, he wouldn't have given it to him, obviously, although the man is talking some nonsense. But it sounds extremely convincing. The crossroads is located in the southernmost part of the continent. The days are long, the land is fertile. They say there is no better place to grow fruits. Then why do they taste so strange? They also say that what you sow on these lands will grow even without proper care. That's only if they are not attacked by monsters through. Monsters destroy fields and kill farmers, but even if these monsters die, the dark energy flowing from them is absorbed into the soil. The whole area becomes infested, the land becomes cursed, all the plants wither and die, because there are no fields around the intersection. The Count looked at his glass with a worried look. He looked at the golden alcohol made from fruits and grains that would never grow on this land. So why was he gardening? Everyone has to do at least one stupid thing in life, isn't it? His stupidity, this garden. Now he can't get drunk even if he wants to, since the Count doesn't know why the guy came here today. Didn't he tell him to leave if he decided to bring up another topic? He can throw out the hero. But first he will say that the monsters are moving here again and their numbers are huge. The last time they fought with 1,000 live armor and were able to stop them, but the walls are badly damaged and the soldiers are reassuringly few. They are in desperate need of military support. He asks the Count for the soldiers under his command. But there are no soldiers under his command. He knows everything about his personal army. He has friends who he trained with whom he made battlefields all his life. But when he gave up his title, put down his spear and shield, they also gave up their weapons. They all retired. The guy stood up and told him to call for execution, but it was useless. This land is not worth defending. Why does a man waste innocent lives in vain and try to protect these worthless front lines? Instead, it is better to evacuate everyone. This is said by a person coming from a family that made it their duty to protect these lands. He asked why the prince came to the south. Everyone dies here with no hope for the future. Here are the tips of someone who has spent his life protecting this place. You need to leave as soon as possible before the curse of this land devours them whole. Did His Highness manage to talk and convince the guy? No, he failed, but he has a gift. Nothing is solved in one day, so he plans to return. It's worth the time and effort, by the way. What happened to the Count? It seems that he had a hard time in the past night. Does he know anything? Nothing. Adar says that he needs to hear everything from the Count personally. This terrible director, in any case, beliefs are beliefs. Now they must do everything in their power, everything they can. Fix the wall and prepare for battle. No matter what cards he has in his hands, monsters will come. His Highness must go all out, kill them with all his might. They returned to the intersection full of work. The number of enemies exceeded 3,250. The next morning, they just finished breaking this huge sword. Today they will remove the bridge and start repairing the walls. No need to throw out the fragments of the sword. They need to be laid out in front of the wall. It will be an excellent barrier, ideal for catching rats. The wall is in far worse condition than they expected, so it will take 10 days to repair it. The next defense is about a week away. There's not enough time. He knows that the intersection wall can't be repaired, which is the epitome of imperial architecture, a couple of pebbles. But he will take care of the workers and materials. They must do everything possible to finish the repair within a week. He knows that this is an impossible task, but he has no other choice. This is not a mistake or a hallucination. 3,000 of those huge rats the size of dogs that they met during the free research. There will be 3,000. They really need this wall. The workers will try their best. He thanked and forever. She won't forget his hard work and sacrifice. For the past few days, he had been repairing the walls during the day and drinking with the Earl of Cross at his place at night. There was no conversation between him and the Count, only alcohol. The defense line was steadily being repaired, and his liver was steadily being destroyed for countless hours. He poured booze into his stomach. After 4 days of silent drinking, the Count finally opened his mouth. He asked if His Highness had someone he loved, but he didn't understand the question at first. If he had someone he loved, he thought he didn't. He was right. If you think about it carefully, is there really no one? What kind of guy does he like? In his world, even before he became a streamer, he was alone. No one really liked him. And he also didn't like anyone. Such a lonely loner. Then he started streaming, gained an audience, and began to receive love from the audience. He was offered to undress for some amount or something. It wasn't love. It wasn't reciprocated. In any case, no matter how much he thought, there is no such person. It looks like the kids had a rough life. And this is being told by a man who usually drinks in proud solitude. The old man loved someone, his wife. She was the only one he loved throughout his life. But she died 3 years ago. She was torn apart by monsters in the garden, had to arrange a funeral with an empty coffin. There is a curse that every lord of these lands will have, this city or precious. He himself will come to the moment when he will have to choose one thing. There were no exceptions, and the very first lord and his grandfather, no one, and his father, no one could not escape the curse. This moment has come for him. For the past few decades, there had been almost no activity around the monsters. The city was calm, but there was no income. And due to financial problems, he had no choice but to open his own business. His wife said that they should start farming outside the front line, because there was a war going on in the lands to the north. So the empty, peaceful lands to the south were ideal. Monsters rarely appeared, so the land was almost not contaminated. They thought that it would be perfect for farming, so they expanded their holdings. Word of the fertile soil spread everywhere. People came here from different places of monsters. There were few they could easily protect themselves. For a while, everything went very well. This orchard was located in the very south of the new border. As the lady, his wife, took the initiative to plant trees and sow the land in the most dangerous places, and he still remembers the grapes that she fed him from dirty hands. The fruits that they had grown in the first year were lousy, but they were sweeter than anything else in the world. And for a moment, he hoped that maybe he could stop killing monsters and instead work in the fields, picking fruit, thereby earning a living. He was wondering if he could continue living like this. But of course, it was impossible. It was the second year they were farming. They received information that about 100 huge monsters were approaching the city. He hurriedly returned to the intersection. His wife stayed to look after the garden. Said goodbye, I told him to be careful. Only after arriving in the city did he find out that the monsters had split up a bunch of monsters, separated from the main group and invaded the farmland. The main group, of course, attacked the city. He had to choose whether he would save his wife on the farm or protect the tens of thousands of residents of the city. He chose the city like all his ancestors. The city, because the principles and rules told him so. He defended the fort and fought the monsters. They won after a few hours of battle. Well, by the time he hurriedly returned home, the fields were already destroyed. All the people were killed. A dozen monsters tore apart 100 people, including his wife. The old man was true to his vocation in return for losing something that was dear to him. What's the problem with the reliability of the defense line protecting the border? Or maybe it was the excessive expansion of his holdings. No, it was entirely his fault. But what hurt him most was that at that moment he had left his wife and chosen the city. The daughter called him crazy. She never understood how he could choose the city over her mother after a few days. She left this place in the end. That was the result of protecting the city. The wife died, the daughter left, and he rots here alone. This is just one example of a young lord. He probably knows the name of the city of graves. But this city, built on bones, is also forced to make elections in order to protect. There will certainly come a time when you have to sacrifice something expensive. It sounds like a curse, like a prediction, like predictions of unanswerable cause and effect of the future. Their family has resisted this sacrifice for many years, but he can no longer pass this cursed work on to his daughter. It turns out that he resigned to protect his daughter from inheriting the position. Everything is exactly like that. He wants her to get out of these cursed lands, live freely and happily. An SSR tank of rank Evangeline Cross, the character he wanted so badly, and the one the Count wants to keep away from the front. He asked him to help with the defense of the city, didn't he? He has already defended himself enough at the cost of his loved ones, and doesn't want to get involved in this anymore. In the Margrave's eyes that were reflected in the glass, there was no pride in dedicating his life to defending the front line. He just wants to die in this garden, not on the walls of the fort, in his eyes. Whether there was regret that he wasn't by his wife's side when she died. This is enough to make it the reason for his refusal. He told him the truth as a sign of gratitude for staying with him. Now he should leave, and a final piece of advice. If that moment comes, for him, you need to choose well not to regret your decision like he did. It was the 5th day of the wall repair, 2 days before the start of the next stage. Everyone was doing a great job. You can take a break and have a snack. As expected of the prince, he is as generous as ever. Unless there was alcohol, let them eat what they give. Everything is going great. As long as he has provided them with enough workers, they think they can handle it on time. The temporary repairs to the wall will be completed in 2 days. The most difficult part was over. It was time for this. Finally, they will use the magic summoning scroll found in the last expedition. It can only be used after studying the alchemy workshop. And just today, the study of the scroll was completed. The prince received the skill magic summoning automatic defensive turret. Finally, he will be able to use the item obtained from the chest and R ranked mana core. All the necessary ingredients for this have been collected. He pointed out the place on the map where the turret was supposed to stand, and it immediately gathered. It was incredible. The magic architecture technology lost 100 years ago. He thanked everyone involved thanks to them. The defense line is getting stronger and stronger. Let them continue in the same spirit. This is a great mood. He hopes everyone it will go on like this. Their next stop is the blacksmith shop. Lucas. New armor was amazing. They ordered the armor. It was made from the Ghost Knight's mana core as the main ingredient. I know I don't like that it has the strength of glass, but it's still more useful than he thought. Prize will use it wisely. He burst into tears. He even almost cried when they took the measurements. Maybe we should give him gifts more often. He thanked the man for the armor, and the man in return said, "Thank you for the opportunity to work with good material for the first time in a long time. If they trust him again, he will do everything in the best possible way. Let him order at any time. As soon as he wants, he will definitely do everything. Equipment creation plays a big role in the game. He will definitely come here often. Now they need to visit the western part of the city. There is something important going on. In the western field of the fortress city, the sounds of cannon shots can be heard, which echoed in the air in memory of the dead. It was a funeral for soldiers who fell in the last defense. New coffins were being filled with earth under the neatly placed headstones. This time there weren't too many deaths, but I couldn't tell if that was a good thing or a bad thing. Today was a blink of an eye. He spent most of the city budget on funerals and even arranged compensation payments to the families of the deceased. This is really a way to spend money royally. It was that man. He was surprised by his presence. But this is the front line, young lord. A place where life is washed away like a mud dam during the rainy season. There will come a time when he will no longer be able to cover up what is happening with good deeds. Did he come here to say that, or did he run out of alcohol at home? Sometimes he comes here to buy a couple of bottles. But that's not why he's here today. He asked his former comrades if they would like to protect the city. What was the answer? They said they want to go back. They want to go back. This is the best news that the prince has heard in the last week. The old man doesn't know how he can be helped by these grandfathers. But they are preparing right now. Now they are completely under his responsibility. Let him treat them well. They are like this as old as he was. It wasn't the count who should be thanked, but them. The count was so busy that he had no idea how to get close to him. But who would have thought that he would still help? To be honest, it was completely unexpected, but the guy is very grateful. This is all he can do to help take care of the city. The new lord he wished him luck and left. He will visit him every time he needs a little of his wisdom. What wisdom let him just bring alcohol? He will send him more medicinal herbs. Because he is worried about his health. It is better not to send anything than this. Surely he is going to his garden. He wanted to stop him, even if he is old. But he is still Margrave Cross, defending this front all his life. He was very helpful in the battle, but in this city he lost and just watched him go. I watched. I believe that next time they will talk more, that he will give him some advice again. At that moment, he didn't even think that there will never be a next time. 2 days later, in the morning, the repairs to the wall were finished. Some of them were hurried. But the wall will do its duty. Good work, they really did a good job. All the preparations were completed. The materials were completed. There was enough army, increased by about 300 soldiers. They said that initially their number was about 1,000, but the final number is still more than he asked for. He kissed the turrets and said he trusted her. The kill box was ready too. Everything was going perfectly. Let the monsters come here if they weren't scared. The masked man came out on the field. The monsters were coming, the scout said. They were huge rats. There were 10 minutes left before the start. They would be here soon. You need to keep your guard up and get ready to be perfect. In all the time that he had played the game, there had never been a situation like this, when everything was fine from the beginning. He had noticed that very man. But who was he? No one had seen that man except the prince himself. It might be hallucinations, hope so. But what if it wasn't? What if someone was really there? And if it was, who the hell was it? The ground started shaking. They were coming. The prince had to stay calm regardless of whether he was hallucinating or not, regardless of the number of those damn rats. The only thing he could do was stop them. The gunners had to be ready to shoot. Fire. They hit the monsters directly. The kill counter increased to almost 100 rats. They took them down with one volley. You need to kill them all. They take only numbers. Their numbers are ridiculously large, so much so that they are forced to crowd because of this. In other words, by directing attacks at one target, they get rid of the whole heaps. 30 minutes had passed before the battle started at this rate, but the rats had brought down the barrier and were rushing forward. So many corpses that they were climbing up the walls. The collapse of the kill box was not part of his plans. You need to change targets. Prepare for ballistariums. The kill box is located far from the fort wall, and the ground after is strewn with obstacles. So far, everything is in order. But there was something he'd missed. They were too fast to hit, terrible rats, too fast. The four-legged monsters running speed, and why didn't he think about it earlier? The speed of the rats that managed to get to the wall would be many times greater than he expected. Just like an automatic defensive turret, falling down doesn't make it obvious that an automatic defensive turret is best suited for defense. But no matter how good it is, it won't be able to protect the entire front. Plus, the turret has used up all its projectiles and is in a rollback state. There are a lot of them, too many of them. The front moved forward faster than he expected. The ball fragments are doing a good job. But it's only a matter of time before they reach the wall. The hero believes that close combat is inevitable. But then lose the soldiers not. He did not have time to speak, as there was a terrible explosion. Who could? This is the Margrave's army. As a result, the recruitment of battered old men exceeded all his expectations. They led the soldiers. It's okay if he misses, just need to keep shooting. They stayed close to the soldiers, acted as mentors. He didn't have to worry about them. They would take care of the soldiers. He trusted them. The defense was still going smoothly. Thanks to the help of this army, the soldiers effectively attacked the sewer rats. Maybe we are wondering what the members of his party were doing at this time. Lucas was leading the front line, and if he has a general plan of action, he gives commands that correspond to the prince's instructions. Even if his naming of this world's combat techniques leads to vague locations, Lucas miraculously captures the essence and gives precise instructions to the soldiers. Demian shoots slowly but surely. He punches holes in the heads of rats approaching the wall. As much as Demian's strength lies in shooting at long distances, it seems that his ability is less significant in large-scale battles. But this is not so because in this case, the number of murders does not matter. This is a great job. Lily is in charge of managing the artifacts, seeing as she raises her voice and busily drives back and forth. It seems as if she says so. Look how hard I work, he apologized. But no matter how hard she tries, he still needs her on the front line. The next and last member of his team, Jupiter, she just lay there. He told her to take a break, but be ready, and she made herself comfortable. Why does her back hurt so much when she's trying to collect mana? Even she can't yell at her, because she's their precious Poppy. It's better for her not to slack off from work after a break. All in all, thanks to the help of everyone but Jupiter, everything is going well. Despite the fact that the front line is approaching, the power of the automatic turret was staggering. At this rate, the clearing of this stage will go smoothly. Will it finally be the first time they cleared Loka without damage or loss? He saw that person again. So it's not a hallucination. You need to create a map. It was a hostile NPC in the second stage. During the defense, many different events can begin because all sorts of changes make the games more interesting. The invasion of a hostile enemy is just one of them. Whether the NPCs from the Lake Kingdom or the Empire are all able to ruin the battle, but they're only in the second stage right now. Next to him, even the director is not there to ask why he developed the game in the first place. Now Damien has seen that guy. You need to shoot him now. But he looks like a person, not a monster. It doesn't matter. You need to shoot him. The prince is sure that this is an NPC from the Lake Kingdom. His suit, it's a signature bow. Now he remembers who he is. The guy must shoot him faster than he can play his magic flute. If he doesn't want to see a large number of people die, then let him shoot immediately. He did not have time to stop the rats from the sound of the flute, and later began to move all in one point, where they are heading all to the center of the wall, where they just finished repairs. You need to change the target of all the guns and use all the firepower. They did not have time to make the change of movement too unexpected. The rats are ramming the wall with their heads. They're crazy. Why do this? The wall they finished repairing this morning is crazy rats. The restoration of the fort wall was completed just a few hours ago. Everyone gave their best, but the feast is a limited period of time. It is impossible to do everything perfectly. They only focused on filling the gap, and so the appearance of a crack was inevitable. The sewer rats tried to squeeze through the gap formed by banging their heads against the wall. Bending metal with their bones and gnawing stone with their teeth, they dig up the wall of the fort. No other monster could do this task better than rats. Perhaps he was imagining it, but at that moment, the man looked like he was laughing. NPC from the kingdom under the Lake Jester, who can control the monster with a flute, players dubbed him the Pied Piper of Hamelin. You need to get rid of him urgently. You need to shoot him. He turned back to the prince. Can't shoot even if that enemy can't shoot a person. It's understandable. Demian still belongs the Hiller class. But among their enemies are quite a few people in the future. He will have to fight against them if it becomes a problem for him. And he will be of little use on the battlefield. They'll come back to this later. But in the meantime, they have bigger problems than that. The archers keep firing, Jupiter. She's got a job to do. And you need to organize a rat barbecue in that direction. The girl must prepare the artifacts at full capacity. Does His Highness think that the Corridor of Death can be created directly under the wall to beat one point, right? Scare the Imperial Wall with a rat? Cool. The name of the wave boss that was previously hidden under question marks is now revealed. The Ratman is a champion. Once the name is revealed, then they have already appeared on the battlefield. Moreover, they have brought even more sewer rats with them. They are trying to break through the fort wall. You need to stop them as quickly as possible. Why, everyone froze. You need to attack. Stop these monsters. This scarecrow is at least twice the size of an ordinary individual that they met in the dungeon. One hit on the fort wall and everything will be destroyed. You need to get rid of the ratmen first and shoot without sparing bullets. Jupiter's power is great. She attacked the rats. The rat carcasses melted like beeswax, however. The attack came out too scattered, and the ratmen champions managed to avoid significant damage. He ordered Lily to use fire artifacts. They were overloaded, but he didn't care. Why did she have only one left? You need to kill him. Lucas went on the attack. He ordered to shoot. Demian shot an arrow directly at the monster. Well, how does he still have the strength to move? The old man watched the entire battle from the mountain. There was something strange about it. The future commander dedicated to fighting monsters all his life. He felt it intuitively. The monster started attacking in a different way than when he was a lord himself. Firstly, there were many times more of them. And secondly, the hierarchy, structure, and method of conducting combat appeared, and tactics began to show through. The prince could have put up 3 such battles already. He could understand why the newly minted one, he came in the first place, turned to the man for help. Well, it turns out that he did a great job on his own. It's even hard to believe that he was a drunken brawler among the people, and yet the matter takes a different turn. Maybe the old man should step in. No, he's already retired. There's no point in getting involved in a pointless battle. You can die in the garden, just like he wanted. No, he doesn't want to fight anymore. He has to go back to his garden, because his beloved is waiting for him there. This time, he has fulfilled his duty to her. His Highness said to start evacuating the townspeople immediately. Sewer rats are coming. They are already very close, except for the rifle squads and artillery. Everyone who is able to conduct close combat immediately go to the breakout point. He ordered Lucas to take over the command of the swordsman shooters, continue to fire, aim, create a fire barrier in front of the breach to the wall. Jupiter, she has complete freedom of action. She can do as she wants. Just kill as much as possible and do not spare mana. She will still be flooded. You need to give the most powerful discharge. Lily said that there was only an artifact left for acceleration. For the fire one, you need another 10 minutes of cooldown. Let her use acceleration on the fighting soldiers for now. And as soon as the fire artifact is ready, she will connect it as well. Damian probably thinks right now that everything that happened was his fault, but he needs him more than ever. He can make mistakes. It's okay. The main thing is not to lose confidence. The marksman who doesn't miss is too important a combat unit for him to know that his mere presence inspires hope. Now he needs to believe in himself, because they believe in him. His task is to provide the last line of defense, fire at those rats that break through the soldiers and rush into the city. We can only hope that everyone will cope with the task. The rats began to break through. Everyone had to get ready. The steamer was quite narrow. They all couldn't get through at once. To keep calm and kill the monsters one by one, Lucas ordered the knights. What happened? The number of rats breaking through grew. They slowly increased their opening. In fact, they are real moles. Fire artifact fully charged, ready to use. He asked how the girl was doing. The rat attacked the people next to her. It was terrifying. His Highness was able to beat off one rat with the jackpot. Lily was very angry. Let them all burn in hell. Monsters that she can treat with flames now. Activating the artifact without scientists will be problematic. There are also losses among the troops blocking the passage from below. The arrows should have helped them, but they have their own problems. At this rate, the damage will not be corrected. There was someone behind the field. It was the former Margrave. He shouted at the evil spirits that he was here and let them run here. He pulled their attention to himself. What he was doing. He was going to die. But a man with a huge sword in his hands was set up very seriously. As we already know, but Cheryl Cross has been fighting monsters all his life. So the city he was born in was a bulwark of defense against monsters. His father left very early, bequeathing the title of Magoff to his son, and despite his young age and the burden of being a landlord, he killed monsters every day. No matter what kind of creature tried to kill him, even so, he was always one step ahead. His world was by no means simple and understandable. However, one day something happened that he definitely could not have expected. This is the appearance in his life of a woman, just a merchant, who asked for a small permission to sell flowers, as well as open her own trap. Of course, Lanaya, the Count, was perplexed by this request, because why did they need to open a flower shop when most of the people in his department sold swords and other armor? But the woman was very cold. She was sure that people always need flowers, because even though flowers wither quickly, people need them. Kanencha was still not convinced by the woman's words, Ubeditelni. He was sure that the woman was a Relotispi or something worse. So in order to catch that person in espionage, he came to her shop every day for evidence. So in the end, he learned to distinguish all kinds and aromas of flowers without knowing it. Understanding. But there was still one thing that he couldn't understand, and that was understanding the nature of beauty. 1 year later, Cheryl proposed to the woman. Of course, his life continued. He continued to go to a Vilzaki, which often did not end in something bad. But it was on the day when something went wrong that he finally returned to his home. Covered in sweat and dirt, he received his daughter, Evangeline, in his hands. Cheryl Cross still didn't understand, so he couldn't say anything at that moment. He just silently wondered why such a tiny existence in such a weak body made his heart flutter. Istro beat fast. After all, when he was just killing monsters on the front lines, as recently, his world was simple and clear, and then everything suddenly turned upside down. Before us again comes the defense of Kripaposti, where we see that everyone is still being asked to assemble a squad of strong guys who were able to stand outside the walls of the fort. Everyone wanted to save the Margrave and destroy the rats. They had to do all this as quickly as possible, faster. Sure enough, they moved out immediately, and he just wished they could make it while the others fought, gritting their teeth until they bled. By that time, just the Margrave himself could not understand why it does what it does. Of course, he promised his deceased that he would meet his end at her grave, but it seems that even this word he will not be able to keep. He was thinking, why did he even get involved in the battle for this cursed city in the first place? He continued to ride his horse with a spear at the ready to trample on his enemies, but they simply took him down, his helmet fell off his head, and more blood began to flow from under his armor. He was flying straight down and couldn't understand why he was still struggling. Why did he bring himself to this state in the first place? However, even when he fell, he knew that he should not just leave everything in the middle, because the flowers, his daughter, and their fragile lives must be protected from monsters. So this is the reason why he continued to fight, continued to protect his city, because this is the best thing he knows how to do. Kill monsters. He just sobbed and continued to kill monsters, because he didn't want to let them cross right through the door. He even knew that no matter how many gardens he grew, no matter how many monsters he killed. But the old money can't be returned just like that. He only knew how to fight monsters, so he will raise his spear again and again, or rather as many times as it takes to accomplish what he lives for. Of course, Margrave Cross stood to his death, gritting his teeth until they bled, unleashing his own rage that had accumulated all along. But why was it so quiet? Why did he stop feeling the monsters attacking? Did he really die? But at the same time, the same guy with white hair came up to him and said that the battle was over. Now he can definitely rest. It was at this moment, as soon as these words were spoken, that his spear slipped out of his hands, and he was finally able to exhale with a calm soul. By that time, our hero arrived in time, who was also approached and told that they did not have time. It was as if he couldn't understand what they weren't talking about, but he looked at the old man who had fallen unconscious. Our protagonist realized that they would need a potion of incredibly high quality that would help the Margrave cope, to which the old man replied that it was not worth wasting such things on him. Because thanks to them, all he does is breathe a little more. The only thing that the old man said was to ask him to pick it up, because he can't see anything. As soon as the wounded and almost dead ruler got up and saw the sun in the sky, he asked if the battle was over. Of course, our main character replied that it was true, and also that the contribution of the Margrave was simply immeasurable, that not a single monster had made its way to them. As soon as the old man heard this, he turned his gaze from the sky to his companions, whose eyes were filled with tears, so he informed them that they did not need to be so upset because it was common to bear losses, and also that it was his turn. He just asked them to think about themselves, not about him, because they were in the city of graves, where people are buried from time to time. He even said that only thanks to these graves people can continue to live in peace for a while. So even if you mourn the fallen all the time, then life will simply turn into an endless memorial service without any holidays. He didn't deny that a good funeral could be counted as something good, but he still needed to make sure that people had positive things to say. Our hero supported his words and said that everything will be so, because he realized that people need hope in order to continue living and move on. The Margrave, in his last seconds with blood on his face, said that if anyone died, it would be people like him who had simply lost all hope. So he asked Ash only for one condition. If his daughter returned, he would have to apologize to her for him. That Ash had told her that she would be the only one who would be able to. He can live as he wants. Of course, by that time the Margrave was already very ill, because he realized that he had not fulfilled any of his promises, neither about the garden nor his daughter. However, our protagonist supported him, saying that he should not reproach himself, because he was protecting not only himself but also people. So that's why all people are indebted to him. But at that moment, the Margrave did not hear anything. So at that moment, our character understood that there would be no other opportunity to hand the old man the same bag of dried fruit that he had been tinkering with, Despite the terrible taste, our main protagonist realized that it was all for this very moment. Ash took out the same pouch, took out a small Uzim, and put it in the Margrave's mouth. He in turn realized that this raisin is much sweeter than the grapes that he tried then, with his wife, and this was the last breath of the old man. Suddenly the bell rang, which meant that the monster's attack had stopped and there was no point in evacuating. But our main character still didn't understand the old man because the man who lost everything defending this city, who hated his job so much that he refused to pass it on to his successors along with the title. What made such a person at all change his mind and come back at the last moment? What did he fight for? What did he even die for? What kind of war was it that so many people had to sacrifice themselves to win? Of course, Ash stood motionless. He realized that the Margrave had been given too much responsibility, which despite everything continued to hang on him for the rest of his life. At the same time, as soon as Wave 2 was finished, our hero was notified of a new reward for clearing. It was Lucas, SSR rank, and then a window with losses in the form of Cheryl Cross. After this moment, our protagonist decided to go back to his room, where he met up with Ader, who greeted Ash, but at the same time was imprisoned in our character's fists. Our hero could not understand because what was happening at all, why this test had such an abnormal difficulty, because even training or the first free game was incredibly difficult, but he wrote it all off as lousy luck. But how did it happen that an enemy NPC appears on the second level, which is able to order enemies, even on the infernal difficulty level? There was no such thing that an outsider was going to stick such a thing on the next stage. Is he just pretending to help but in fact secretly slipping tricks? Ader was silent at first, but then abruptly became serious and said that he was on Ash's side. But our character did not calm down. He tightened his grip on Ader's throat, which is why he had to say that the necklace was most likely to blame for everything, the functionality of which will be revealed to Tom after the third wave. So as soon as if he did it right away, then all the litters would do it. And Ader said that he respected Ash as a gambler. So he sincerely hoped that he would pass all the tests and continue to fight like today, so that after that he would learn the bitter truth of the world, because in any case he would not be able to get out. All this put our main character in a not very comfortable position, because he realized that in the sense of his new world, it would simply be impossible to get out. So finally we were able to see a certain girl. By morning, special flags were already hung on all the streets, which indicated and inspired a certain mourning. In general, a very bad atmosphere reigned in the whole city. But this was definitely not the time when Ash could just give in to such a mood. He had to prepare for the next wave, before the start of which was a little more than 12 days. He was sitting in his carriage and knew that with the past 3 days it was only 15 minutes to the next level. But not much, but a lot. If you look closely enough, at least the wall in the city will have time to be repaired by this time. But as soon as he looked out the window, he noticed that someone was there. It's worth it. He was about to ask Lucas to see who it was, but at the same time the girl with the spear was already flying at the carriage, which really scared our protagonist. After a brief reflection, everyone went out into the street. Who exactly is this woman that attacked them? For such a thing will definitely be arrested, and her fate will be decided by the court. Of course, our main protagonist could not believe in the trial of a child, but Lucas replied that you should not underestimate the enemy because of age, because she clearly passed special training. You just had to look at her uniform to make sure of all this. She even had a badge on herself. What kind of behavior was that? For the students of the academy. But at the same time, this girl said that it was she who wanted to ask them this. Of course, that made her angry. And then she just pointed to the building behind her and said it was her house, because she had just returned, and it was full of armed men, whom she had never seen before in her life. How did she even need to understand that they were not bandits, or even conquerors, occupied other people's territories? So here they also came. That is, our protagonists. Anyone in her place would have stopped them. But of course, Ash couldn't figure out why she should have destroyed their map in the first place. She could have just talked about it. Of course, the girl immediately replied that the key rule of the academy is that if someone is in doubt, then you need to show strength. This is the only way to take control of the situation. But of course, she understood that she didn't want to destroy the carriage either. But at the same time, she pointed her spear at them again and she asked them who they were and what they needed in her house. She also warned that the degree of punishment will depend on their response. At the same time, Lucas asked the woman to keep quiet, because he was clearly sure that this estate belonged to our protagonist. It was he who was standing in front of her. But at the same time, the girl said that the landlord of these lands was her father, which only meant that she was Evangeline Cross. The girl couldn't tell if they knew each other. But Ash only said that her father had told her about her, and one look was enough to tell her that she was the daughter of a Margrave. Of course, something was not clear to him, because in the game Evangeline was a tall and beautiful girl, and in life only a short one. Why everything was so different, because all the other characters correspond to their prototypes. Of course, while he was saying this, Lucas gave him a little hint that discussing people's appearance in front of them is a bit rude. So at the same time, our main character wanted to apologize a little, because he really didn't want to mean anything bad. Of course, Evangeline was upset by this. She just couldn't believe that someone dared to make a pass at her appearance, right in front of her nose. Was it really an immortal in front of her, or was it just so strong that he wasn't afraid of her? But at the same time, Evangeline, to all the exclamations of our main character, said that she had changed her mind, because before she only wanted to stop the carriage and interrogate. But now she decided to start acting at all, launching into battle, just like her father. Of course, Lucas protected our main character from the blow, telling Evangeline to lower her spear, because does she know who is standing in front of her? But Evangeline replied that she couldn't believe it. She only took the fact that the kingdom continues to steal property over and over again, even without considering any consequences. She even crowned that no prince would settle there in her estates. At the same time, she launched her attack again, but Lucas parried it as well. She was very pleasantly surprised by this, but Lucas in turn replied that it was nothing unexpected, because he is a graduate of the same academy as her. He is a graduate of the number 369th issue. Even the person behind him is also a graduate of the academy and said that this particular prince was the most legendary. Our hero was very surprised by this information. He wanted to learn more about himself, but most likely in vain, because Lucas's face was covered with sweat, but he had to say that he was the first from the very end, because he was incredibly masterful at avoiding studying all the time. Of course, Ash knew he'd been pissed in his ears, but there was nothing he could do about it. As soon as they told her everything, Evangeline smiled and said that even so, you cannot just take and deceive the girl, because she was a student who won first place in the 375th edition. She decided to greet all her colleagues and again launched into battle. Of course, in the face of our main character, an incredible sight opened up. Did 2 SSR rank people really fight in front of him? Of course, he knew that if things continued like this, someone would definitely get hurt, so he decided to suggest that they finish up and just discuss everything. But of course, none of this helped him. Those guys were just not up to it, because the 2 knights were completely engrossed in the battle with each other. In such fights, you need someone third to get in and break up the brawlers, but who will it be? Of course, it will be a rather weak person who came from behind Evangeline and decided to attack, who got the jackpot, who just took down the wall. Lucas just couldn't understand how our protagonist did this to a child. They didn't even know if the child had survived this? Of course, when Evangeline was younger, during monster attacks on the city, her mother would always come to her room and tell her that she had to make sure that her daughter wasn't afraid of monsters. But of course, even then, Evangeline knew that the only one who was afraid of monsters was her mother. Evangeline always told her mom that she shouldn't have been afraid, because their dad should have known for sure that there was nothing to be afraid of. But then Evangeline realized something else, or rather that her mother was not afraid of monsters, but of losing her father, and that her daughter would also have to go out one day. A bloody battlefield. It was at this moment that Evangeline woke up, smelling a familiar smell, and also that she was in a familiar room, her own room. She started to look around, but at the same moment the door opened, where our protagonist went. She wrapped herself in a blanket and started talking about how it had been 3 years since he had seen her, asking him about hunting and all that. But Ash said he wasn't her father, which surprised Evangeline. She immediately wanted to take her weapon, but didn't find it nearby. She only noticed that she was wearing bandages. Ash said that she probably still hadn't realized anything, so he decided to apologize for his punch. She pointed at it and realized that it was the same old man who fought with her yesterday. But this all upset our main character because he is not an old man, and he does not pretend to be rich. He asked her permission to introduce himself, saying that he was Ash von Hader Everblack, the 3rd prince of the Empire and now the current landlord of Crossroads. Evangeline couldn't believe that the man in front of her was still spouting such nonsense, because if he was a prince, then she must be a princess. She wanted to ask him to kiss her hand, but Ash just showed her the royal family badge. The girl couldn't believe it because was there a real royal family canoe floating in front of her? She realized her mistake, to which our character replied that he had always said that he was a prince. Of course, at this point, Evangeline's face changed. She started saying that she adored the royal family and asked for an autograph, which of course our main protagonist did, but then asked if she was really a fan of someone like him. But even from the look of Evangeline's self-confidence, you could tell that this was all true because our hero is a real rebel. Just like her, because she went directly against her father. They were the most real fiends of hell. She said that she ran away from her dad and then went to the academy on her own. Only it turned out that they were just training, so she had to put up with everything that was required of her so that they wouldn't beat her up. Of course, our main character understood that everything was like that, because he was definitely not an exemplary student, but it was still clear that Evangeline graduated from the Royal Academy in just 3 years, becoming one of the best in her class, because training takes as much as 6 years. She is a genius who is deeply rooted in the history of the academy. Evangeline went on to say that the most rebellious thing she could do was not to mess with her father during the entire training period, but then she heard from Her Highness that even as the son of the Emperor himself, our Ash was able to work like an inveterate on his own strength, and with his creativity, allowing him to change the headlines every week. I couldn't leave her alone because who else could come up with such ideas? Who else could make the Emperor faint from pure anger? Evangeline was just shocked because her idol was standing in front of her. Of course, our main character could not understand that with his shitty behavior, he is also someone's idol. While he was thinking about it, Evangeline couldn't wait for her father to put all his devious ideas into practice, hoping that he would stop hiding. However, despite her fervent mood, our protagonist asked her if she knew any news. Of course, she didn't know anything, and what could have happened. However, Ash simply clenched his fists, which made it clear to Evangeline that something was definitely wrong. Sure enough, Ash put on his serious and sad face again, apologized for having to listen to all this in this environment, and then confessed that her father was dead. He told her that he had sacrificed his life a few days ago and saved the city once again. He said that her father was a hero, and also that he had recorded all his achievements and sent them to the palace. He assured Evangeline that her father worked hard all his life, so that he received at least a royal medal for honor and bravery. He even told her that the funeral would be in 3 days. Evangeline just laughed nervously enough, and said that as soon as she was going to be a bad girl, he ran away right away. She even understood that he always told her that he would probably die fighting monsters, and now he was really dead, and she didn't even have time to vent all her anger. Of course, our main character again asked for forgiveness, because from now on he is the lord of those lands, and now it is he who gives orders. So the responsibility for the death of her father also lies with him. He asked to take out all his anger on him. But then Evangeline asked if this was exactly the same Prince Ash who was just a regular scumbag and only thought about himself. So at the same time, he told her that if she wanted anything, she should only go to the servants. He started to walk out the door, but Evangeline stopped him and said she was sorry for what had happened yesterday. Of course, Ash took it all with dignity. So as soon as he walked out the door, he immediately went to Eider, who asked him to take into account that Evangeline is only 16 years old, and also that Evangeline was supposed to appear too, 3 years from now. But in their version of events, due to a number of circumstances, it appeared earlier than expected, which is why it was not the same as in the original. In other words, you could understand that Evangeline appeared much earlier, and in these 2 years you could definitely succeed in many other ways. However, after looking at her stats, you could see that she was a tank, but the dexterity rate was too high, which was exactly what you would expect from the best tank in the game. That her stats were simply amazing, which means that our Ash's mouth was definitely not just like that. Not to mention her cheating 100% physical damage resistance. But at the same time, I looked at her stats, where in addition to unstoppability, it was written clumsiness. It was this stat that allowed its owner to make a lot more mistakes on the battlefield. Of course, our character realized that this was all due to her immature age, because she appeared much earlier, but she could still oppose her enemies at such a young age. As soon as our main character recovered a little, Lucas came to him, who asked if his prince really wants to include Evangeline in the main cast. But at the same time, the bespectacled man also said that Miss Evangeline would be a great addition to their lineup. Of course, our protagonist wanted to get 2 SSR rank characters already at the 3rd level, but he remembered the words of her father that he would like his daughter to get out alive and Nereid. Our Ash promised him this because it was the Margrave's dying request, and our hero keeps his promises. Of course, it was clear to everyone that Yushin should not lose such a precious thing, and everything was clear from his own face. But he simply could not deviate from his personal principles for the sake of profit. But even if he continues to deceive everyone and act for his own benefit, it will definitely not get better, and he wants to get better and better. Yu Ader, in turn, said that no matter how much our protagonist's actions turn out to be a heavy burden, because if this happens, it will definitely not be very good. But of course it was all the same to Ash, because although he is not a saint, but he will definitely not turn into a monster. Because even if in his new reality a human life is not worth a penny, then he would still prefer to remain a human, that's all. In any case, he asks Adar to keep an eye on Evangeline, but at the same time the bespectacled man said that there were some problems with her shield and spear, because according to preliminary estimates, they were incredibly high-ranked, but they were very badly damaged. Adar asked them not to worry because they still had high-quality materials, or rather cores, from the last invasion. But after these words, our protagonist's face became even more bored. He said that he spent all the cores to load the cannons. He even wanted to give up his gloves, to which the bespectacled man said that it would not even be very equal. He asked for the entire party to be called together immediately, and said that they were going to get the cores, because in any case it was already time for them to make a new trip to the dungeon. After a while, in the backyard of the estate, our main character gathered people we already knew. Of course, some people were not happy with this, because it seems like Ash gathered a squad of newbies. But Ash asked to calm down, and also said that all newbies are very low ranking, because even including such in the gear composition is very fraught. If only there would be some great assistant or something like that that would have been much better. But it was at this moment that Evangeline appeared, so our hero had to introduce her to all his people, calling her the only daughter of the quiet Margrave. Everyone expressed their feelings immediately, but at the same time Evangeline asked where everyone was going. Of course Ash had to answer that they were going to the dungeon, which surprised Evangeline. Because is there really a dungeon under the lake? However, she only said that she could only guess, because no one had ever been out of it before, to which our hero replied that no one but them. Our character said that most likely she did not know about it, because her family did not tell her anything. She even ran away before she really had time to learn the knowledge that was tender for the heiress. So if the secret about this dungeon is in front of Vasya, then she simply did not grow up to it. Our hero was about to leave, but Evangeline said that she also wants to, because she is the best in her field, she is the best in her course. She said that if it was all true that there was something under the lake, then she just had to see it with her own eyes. She just deserved to know about it all. Of course, our protagonist didn't want to involve her in all this, because of what her father said, so he asked her again. And she said that if she stayed in one place, she would definitely go crazy. So it would just be better if she did something. Exactly at this moment, the squad was regrouped. It was thanks to this that the squad definitely became stronger. And they will tell each other about everything else on the way back. Our hero will show her exactly what will happen later. As soon as they went a little further, as usual, the system showed them warnings, tips, and everything else. But it was too late because they entered the first floor. Lucas continues to behave cautiously as usual, to which our character asked him to calm down, because she again got to the first floor because of the new girl. Jish just wanted to test Evangeline Key's abilities as quickly as possible, which means they needed easier monsters. He even said that monsters are revived after each time as they come out of the dungeon. It is thanks to this that you can endlessly farm items, experience for your characters, but usually the squad in the case of new ones is divided into two groups. But their map goes further, defeating bosses, and the other group goes to farm in already explored Huns. This is what is called the classic guards. But this time they won't share the moment. They'll just get back together and give Evangeline a chance to level up and work as a team. So why don't they leave her alone? But as soon as he turned around, he noticed that Evangeline just got seasick. But she just spelled out that they were doing fine, but of course you can't tell from their faces. Of course, there was an immediate argument between Evangelia and Lucas, because they were just trying to please each other in front of each other. But the gospel itself still could not believe, because how did our protagonist himself even find out about this place? But Ash was already prepared for this question. He had prepared an answer in advance, so pretending that he was something of himself. He replied that it was all the king's will. The entire squad was delighted with this answer, but our character was glad that everyone believed it, because the emperor was not even involved in this. After all, it was very useful to have this title. It saved a lot of unnecessary problems. In any incomprehensible situation, you could just get a badge, and it was all in the bag. Although our hero did not know the face of our main person in person, but still he could only say a huge thank you to him for being there. Right at this moment, he had already asked to take torches and move forward. Of course, Evangeline, who had never been in a dungeon like this before, couldn't believe that it was so dark, but Joe only replied that darkness was the only constant thing in the entire dungeon, so he had to get used to it. But if he wanted to go back, he just had to go back. Our character's face changed, and it was immediately obvious that he was mocking her very much, which made her very angry, because she wanted to pretend that she was definitely not afraid. At the same time, a notification flashed that they were trapped in a dried-up sewer system. They needed to clean up 4 rooms. The party immediately recovered, so they decided to take a quick look around for monsters. But as soon as they thought about it, they immediately noticed the first monster, a golem that was level 7. Of course, everyone understood that this battle would be a complete hemorrhoid, but they could still be defeated. Looking back, our hero noticed that Evangeline was clearly nervous, so most likely she wasn't even in a real battle. But at the same moment, he asked everyone to get ready, because now they have to show what they are all capable of. So as soon as the golems started their attacks, Evangeline was the first to attack. Protect yourself with your new shield. As soon as she tried to block the blow, she understood the strength of the monsters. She decided that now it was time to try to go into battle herself. She immediately activated her second skill with a spear, or rather returned all the damage received by her shield to the enemy. As soon as this happened, our protagonist realized that now in front of him is the same gospel from the game, which used its crown skill. He explained that the first skill captures damage, and the second skill releases it. Of course, there is a limit to this level, but that's why it does not become less cheating, because even clumsiness can play a role, which happened at the same time. Ash, noticing this, asked everyone to start helping, so Lucas immediately came to the rescue and dealt with the first goal in one shot. Of course, Evangeline was shocked by this, and she asked Lucas to leave her at least one golem, which made it clear to our main character that she just wants to repay the debt for what happened earlier. It was at the same time that the system announced that the first zone was cleared. So the only thing our hero did was just smile, because they managed to cope quickly enough, even though the first floor cannot be called training. So now that everyone has already warmed up, it was possible to go to a more difficult area, but it will be much more difficult there, which surprised Evangelia very much. They entered the second zone, which is called Back Streets, but Ash was also there for the first time, so he hoped that he would find a lot of valuable ore, or rather cores. Of course, as soon as they entered, they decided to rest for a while, because even though it was mentioned earlier that the first zone is much better than the second, it was still worth saving some strength. They sat down right under the streetlight, and then, as usual, our hero realized that even in this situation, were Lux really going to continue arguing with the little one? Of course, everyone started asking each other about this, so our protagonist decided to transfer to one of his subordinates the magic weapon that he received from the chest in the last room. In terms of power, it is not even particularly inferior to the real gun itself, only a portable version, as a result of which they have high damage. But a large spread at extremely low ammunition is quite a challenge. Because of all these disadvantages, such a gun is not in great demand. But what will happen if you give it to a character like Damien? Of course, with a 100% chance of being hit, the picture changes dramatically, so I asked you to use it as a spare weapon. Of course, Jish understood that if it was difficult for Tom, then he would just need to become a little stronger, because in the future, Tom would just have to carry 5, 6 such things with him. This is the only way to compensate for the lack of ammo during the battle. And of course, our main character has already ordered his own forge to prepare for work with a gunshot. In the game, a character can only equip one weapon before going, but in reality, no one will forbid them to carry several at once. Is this really not according to the rules? But of course, at this moment, it was necessary to score a little on them. So as soon as he finished handing out the gifts, he asked everyone to get up and move on. He said it was time for them to clear the next area of the underground city. Of course, our protagonist's group was carefully walking through the alleys that made up most of the kingdom under the lake. So of course, there wasn't a single ray of light. When you play as a character, the darkness doesn't really soar. But when you walk yourself, seeing only the darkness around you was very stressful, which our character noticed, even though he understood that it was all obvious. Since they were in a monster's lair, there was no telling where the monster would come from. As soon as these thoughts flashed through his mind, then at the same moment the monsters jumped out, destroying the walls in front of them. They were no longer just stone golems. They were mechanical golems that had reached level 15. Of course, Ash again could not understand, because how can you even take this room for first? However, while everyone was wary and scared, Lucas immediately went forward to attack the golem. Our hero asked them to be careful, because the golem was not alone, so Evangeline decided that it was time to help her, and noticed that they were stronger than the previous golems. Of course, while they were engaged in battle, it all made it clear to our character that you need to think through a plan, because this is his only help to his squad. He turned to his squad and said that the first thing to do was to attack the golem that Lucas was fighting. Because even though Evangeline and Lucas were of the same class, Evangeline was more like a tank. Of course, if you take into account purely the ability to absorb damage, then Evangelia will definitely win. So at the same moment, our protagonist shouted at her to do nothing but defend herself. In addition, our hero noticed that this size of monsters always meant a small number of them, but a fairly large force. So they also had an E-Elite title. Ash understood that it was only for such battles and traveling in groups, so he asked Lucas to knock him down. As soon as the leg was injured, our Ash ordered Jupiter to attack the golem's chest so that the core could be hit. Lightning struck the golem, but Jupiter thought it wasn't enough, so he wanted to make another attack, but our hero said it should be enough, so he asked Damien to shoot because he didn't need a big hole. A small gap is also enough. As soon as the shot was fired, Damien immediately jumped back. Damien thought he'd missed, but when he looked ahead, he noticed that the iron golem no longer had a solid torso. Even Lucas noticed that it took a lot of work. But it wasn't anything out of the ordinary, since this golem was of elite quality. Of course, everyone realized that now their battles in the second zone will be like a boss battle. Of course, everyone was happy until Evangeline showed herself again, shouting for our heroes to help her. This made it clear to our protagonists that it was time to join the battle again. Of course, having killed the first golem, now it became easier on the battlefield, because now the team understood how they should work together. But then there were similar cases that should not have happened, for example, a mimic attack on our character. But the only thing that his team did was laugh. Their path continued. Lucas, like a true knight, was constantly in front, protecting his entire squad. Damien, as well as the other members of the squad, were walking around the back streets, trying to find something interesting, because surely someone was trying to hide from what was happening around them. After all, there were so many boarded-up houses for nothing. However, our protagonist only replied that people didn't want to let something get out. Damien was scared, but our hero asked him to go on. As soon as they entered the square, they realized that it was most likely the next zone, the area of which was incredibly huge. Our Ash knew that if no one wanted a golem on their face, they had to be careful. At the same time, Evangeline didn't really care about words, so the only thing that surprised her was the dried-up fountain that the statue towered over. Our protagonist even noticed that Studi was wearing a crown, which means that the king is in front of them. But at the same time, the question arose, why is it intact, and the other two on the sides are destroyed? But Damien also noticed something. He noticed a blue color ahead, so everyone immediately decided to go further and check for themselves. What was there? Our Ash understood that monsters were most afraid of humans in the city. But what kind of person would agree to live in such a dungeon? Is this some kind of trap that can lead to the end of the game? But after walking further, they noticed the broken iron armor of the golems on the ground. Was it really one person who did this? As soon as our character thought about this, a person spoke up in front of him at the same time. Of course, this was a very strange encounter, because Ash didn't meet this enemy in 742 attempts to complete the game, so it was just hard to tell if he was a friend or not. However, despite everything, Moomin asked everyone to calm down, and then reached into his cloak. The squad was startled by this sudden action, but despite everything, he simply laid out a carpet with many items, which made it clear that he was a merchant. Moomin was incredibly skilled at this, even offering a 30% discount, so Ash had no choice but to just sit down and start picking out items and goods that Moomin had found while wandering around the kingdom under the lake, which were definitely very difficult to get. Of course, the entire squad understood that these items were of incredible quality. Our hero asked about the payment, so Moomin replied that he would charge for everything in crystals, not money. This was not surprising, since even in the game, crystals and cores were used in this way. But there was one problem. Ash exchanged all the crystals for currency as soon as he received the crystals. Who would have known that he would meet such an NPC so early? However, it was definitely worth a try, so he took out the crystals and cores that he earned today. Moomin looked at them and said that they were pretty mediocre, but in honor of their merits, she would let them choose one item. Ash's eyes lit up, but not just his eyes, but the eyes of everyone in the squad. Each of them began to ask for something, then a root that can rejuvenate for 10 years, then shoes that were generally offered to our protagonist in order to run away from danger faster. Then there was the potion cooking station, So our character asked us to choose Evangeline, who wasn't really interested because she's a temporary member of the squad, so she also has her shield and spear in repair. Our hero realized that he had hit it, so he decided to tell the merchant that they needed a set of shield and spear, so Moomin put in front of them a beautiful set of ASA, SSR quality. Ash knew that it would be very disappointing if he got one item, because if everything goes like this, then the set effect will not work. He began to bite his fingers. But Mominus, she replied that she was giving them a present here, but asked them to promise her one thing: to go to this dungeon and bargain with her further. Our hero already melted after these words. He felt like a beginner who was given a little loot from an avid player. As soon as Ash received the items, he immediately called Evangeline, to whom he could now confess what had happened to her things. However, even after the presentation of the gospel, she was not so happy or upset, because she believed that she was the one who started the fight. Of course, despite all the shield and spear she was wearing, there were many reasons for this, because our hero just wanted to pay tribute to her father. Evangeline blushed a little and said she would keep them safe. Many of our protagonist's companions started asking for something, and the old man just took out a stone from somewhere, buying his ginseng, which he had wanted for so long. As soon as the purchases were completed, our hero also asked Mumi and Momin if she knew a certain bard who plays the flute and controls monsters. The merchant did not understand who he was talking about at first, but then she seemed to remember this one, and then asked them not to worry because if you go straight ahead, then there will be a camp between the third and fourth rooms where it is safe. She said that there are many people going there, because this place is called the main camp. Of course, Ash knew this place because you could find partners or something there. The merchant looked in that direction and said he was sure they were all fighting in one piece. Damien found everything interesting, but Lucas expressed his concern about this woman, because you couldn't trust someone who smashed golems to smithereens. Of course, the protagonist understood that Lucas himself could have reached such a state, but now it would seem simply impossible for everyone, and also realized that the merchant can be included in the number of friendly NPCs. As soon as they were done, our character asked everyone to start getting ready, because there would be a boss in the next zone, and they had to leave already. As soon as they came to some strange cave, everyone was sweating on their skin, to which our hero asked everyone to gather all their strength into fists and stop being afraid of the boss they were going to all this time. As soon as they entered, they started to look around. At first they didn't notice anything, but then Damien pointed ahead at the strange armor that lay ahead. It was then that our character realized that this was definitely not an ordinary pile of... It was exactly the boss they were waiting for. It was a giant mechanical golem, the size of which reached incredible heights, and the level of 20. Of course, Ash also noticed the strange fact that the golem had a human name as well as a duty. So what was that about? As soon as he thought about it, the golem spoke up and said that it was time for him to take out the trash. Everyone immediately started running around, but the golem started shooting some kind of lasers from its hands, which was immediately repelled by the knights. The old man asked what they were going to do, but our protagonist only thought so far, even though he knew how to defeat this boss. After some thought, he asked not to be afraid of the golem, but to take its size because they only have to do the same as with other golems, just destroy its core. Of course, it was also clear to everyone that this golem will have several cores per carcass, or rather at the folds, on the head. So if you count, you will get as many as 10 pieces, which surprised the squad very much, because will it really continue to fight when it does not have a core? Zhizh confirmed all this, but then said that after destroying at least one core of a certain part, this part will simply stop working, so it was necessary to start with the pincers. At the same time, the first shot was fired, so they began to work on their legs. As soon as the boss got angry, our protagonist noticed that he was about to throw a broken arm at them, just like a club. Evangeline dodged, and Lucas wasn't standing still, so it was decided to continue attacking. The attacks were repelled, so our protagonist continued to deal with the monster again. After that, they wounded his arm, so that only the head remained. But even at this moment, the robot did not give up its position. It began to use its head, a real psycho. Ash knew that even if he dodged such a blow now, it would pass through the others behind him, so he decided to strike again. His strike was successful, so in a second the golem's head was no longer on its shoulders, and it was raining oil. Of course, as soon as the golem fell, Lucas asked our character to finish it off, because only thanks to this can you get the most experience, but this is exactly what Ash lacks. The golem started to say something again, but it was too late, because our hero had already raised his sword to the nid and immediately pierced it. Of course, the notification was displayed, Our hero realized that they had Prekrasno Zakonili Dano Ezdanie, and to all he can get a lot of experience. How much do we get for it? Of course, Damien started talking about the trunk that the old man really wanted to open, but Lucas forbade him. As soon as the chest was opened, an item of SR rank, the Scream Sphere, was noticed inside. But of course it could only be used by a mage. Of course, for the full power of this sphere, it was necessary to find 2 more items, but of course no one knew where to find them. In addition to the sphere, there were 2 spheres of excellent quality in this chest, but it was all quite boring for the boss room. So after that we decided to find checkpoints and go home. They went a little further, where they noticed a rise in the air, which could be very familiar for our main protagonist. Everyone was very tired, as if they wanted to die. But then our hero showed the teleportation gate ahead, to which Jupiter immediately ran. But as soon as he ran to the edge and stopped, everyone realized that he saw something that turned out to be so. He saw that the kingdom under the lake was just incredible, and also that there was light in this kingdom. Evangelia also pointed ahead and said that there is also a very interesting thing there, and that it is the central tower. It would be there to give battle to the final boss. But the whole squad would also know how much they would need to drag there, because they were only at the very beginning. Our character didn't think about it, but asked them to think about it next time, because it was time for them to go home, or they would just be unstoppable. Once the free research was completed, 2 rewards were awarded, and many of his group also rose to a new level. Everyone understood that they were in this dungeon at dawn, and returned in the evening, and knows that they spent the whole day. Our Ash decided that he would sleep until dinner, eat a little, and then get to work. As soon as he sat down in his office, he decided to check. After all, what items did he get? Looking at his inventory, he noticed that he was given a blue flame torch for completing the 2nd zone, which will never go out, and then a mechanical golem summoning scroll. Of course, it was disposable, but this one can be used for personal purposes. Of course, he decided to use it right away because there was no point in waiting so long, and then he realized that he was very hungry. He left the room and noticed a very unpleasant picture of Lucas and Evangeline competing to see who would eat the most. But still, don't even put anything normal in your mouth. Of course, our Ash was very noble. He said that he would cook something. This surprised them very much, because how does the prince know how to cook? But our hero answered that it is not forbidden by law, so you can cook a little. The only thing he wanted at that moment was ramen, but it simply couldn't be made, so he decided to choose something else. Many people watched his cooking with caution, but in a few seconds the royal toast was ready. Ash knew that it didn't even require sauce, but still, many people just screamed with pleasure. Evangeline even compared it to food from the grocery store, which reminded her very much of her childhood. She remembered that one day they came to the kitchen and noticed that her father was eating a hastily prepared meal, because monsters could appear at an unexpected moment. Of course, he'd offered her a taste too, so she figured that was why her cheeks were so round. Of course, Avelia remembered all this with a smile on her face, because mostly her mother participated in such events. But then she realized that everything was in the past. Of course, our main character said that the funeral would be tomorrow, so he offered to give the same speech instead of him. But Evangelia refused. She entrusted it all to Ash. She said that she respected her father very much, but she still couldn't forgive him, because most likely he didn't even tell her how her mother died, how he left her, preferring to protect the city walls, or, of course, she could understand him, because it was all a lord's duty, but she couldn't understand why he didn't come to the funeral. So it was on that day that she decided that she would not become the head of the family, or rather the lord. Our personage understood why she decided to start rebelling so much, but the Gospels in turn said that she was very grateful for seeing her father off like this, but she still wouldn't forgive him. There were tears in her eyes, and then she left after thanking me for the food. As soon as our protagonist and Lucas finished, they decided to leave as well, because it was too late. As Lucas walked, he decided to ask a question about Ash's family, because was that really why he was so worried about them? The main character could not understand, because really he is so at odds with his family. So at the same time, Lucas asked her if she reminded him of himself. Of course, our character fell into a stupor, because he didn't know if Lucas had solved it or if he was really worried. Of course, this was the first time Ash had ever seen Lucas in this light, since he was the son of the Emperor after all. Our character was about to say something, but Lucas quickly apologized and said that he was sorry for such a personal question, but the situation with the gospel will be resolved on its own. Was our hero really just so worried? As soon as he ran into his room, he realized that he would need more information about his own family. And he also realized that he needed to spend more time with the person who owned his own body. The next day, preparations for the wave began again, because there was still a week left. There will be fewer monsters, but they will be elite. This time they will definitely have to work hard to cope. They must be ready to stop all problems at the root, so that's why Ash has strained all production. A moment later, everyone reappeared in the cemetery, including the Margrave. Of course, this coffin was carried from the temple itself, because the landlord who ruled for decades died. Even though people were really used to such deaths, but on this day they were incredibly grieving. It is in the garden that everything will happen, because his wife is waiting for him there. As soon as our character began to speak, absolutely every warrior listened to the words. The entire squad of our protagonist even got into this atmosphere. Everyone understood that on this particular day they might be a little sad. Our hero asked everyone to remember that the city and the empire continue to exist in it. So he asked everyone to remember that the city and the empire, that they will always suffer losses. All he had hoped for at the time was that these funerals would be replaced by festivals, which was exactly what the Margrave wanted. In honor of the fallen, at the same time, a cannon volley rang out, and the funeral was finally over. As soon as many people left them, they immediately noticed the gospel, which everyone began to approach, as well as express all their feelings, because that one was not there for 3 years. Of course, Evangeline's hands were shaking, and she only asked to look at her father, who was in the coffin. She had seen enough of the dead body, so she was about to leave. One of the people came up to her and asked her to listen to him, because the Margrave's equipment was passed down from generation to generation, so they didn't know whether to bury it with him or not. But the Gospels only closed their eyes and said that they would have to be buried together with her father. Of course, the funeral was over, and our Ash was remembering all the words and poems that the Margrave had said. But now what would our man have to sacrifice to remain a man? But while he was thinking about it, Evangeline came and heard that Ash was reading poetry, and she said that he was very good at it. Of course, the girl didn't look like she was very worried about anything, so it made it clear to our protagonist that she was just ready for the fact that at one point she would need to leave the city. Our Ash said that he would help her, which surprised Evangeline very much, because isn't he going to stop her? But our character just said that now it's his turn to take care of the city. Of course, Evangeline was a little surprised, because if she was in the place of our main character, she would definitely go to the palace as quickly as possible. But of course, Ash couldn't say that if he brought this world to its true ending, the developer would give him a wish, which is why he's trying his best. As soon as he said that, he started to hear a very strange sound. He thought they were being attacked, but it was actually Evangeline who was just very hungry, so at that moment they decided to fill their stomachs. At the moment, he has 2 main tasks. The first is his usual work, preparing for the next level, and the second is paperwork with the division of cross-property. Evangeline refused to inherit the title, and I decided to move out of there, so it would be best to give her at least part of the estate retroactively so that she could leave this place without regret. Since he intends to give up and leave, the director will deal with the sale of the family's property, as well as take care of the inheritance process and legal papers. But it is unlikely to sell everything in a week. Real estate makes up most of the family's property. Finding a buyer in such a short time is problematic. Let him then buy everything in the hero's name at the proper price. He wants to resolve this issue within a week. Let Evangeline go home before the time comes for defense. Here, all the members of the Cross family died. Evangeline is the last descendant. In other words, the only survivor, and she must be sent as soon as possible so that she does not get involved in the battle. This was the last wish of the Margrave, and he is going to fulfill it. And Adar is a surprisingly good secretary. I am sure he will cope with this task. Time passed inexorably, and the next stage was inevitably approaching. The guy will definitely pass the game without using life, where as an expendable material and do not lose his own morals, he will prove that it is possible. A week later at the smithy, he was informed that this was their first experience in making weapons, so there were a lot of difficulties. They didn't have enough time to make 5 pieces. They apologize. These weapons were invented 100 years ago, but disappeared from the market due to the high price and practicality. To create one such alchemist and blacksmith had to work together. And to put them together, oh how difficult. They only managed to build 2. They will be angry, so let them bring at least these. The sword, Black Queen, was too good to be true. They created it using the special mana core that he gave them. Training was a stage that was impossible to pass, however. They killed the queen, and it turned out to be a core. Despite the fact that the Black Spider Army appears only in the second year of the game's plot, he expected that weapons made from such a core would be superior in quality to any of the available ones. She expected everything, but this thing breaks the balance. A hard carry. With such a gun, another year passes. And if you consider that the user of this weapon is Demian, that is, a cheat character with eyes 1,000 miles away, which guarantees an accurate hit. Finally, the game decided to make his life easier. While the old people were making it, they thought they were in a trance. They are also very happy that they created this masterpiece. The second weapon was just normal, despite the lack of characteristics. It can be useful compared to how much accuracy Damian has no problems. They both did a good job. It's hard to work in the forge. He will take care of a good reward and trust them again next time. Lucas had asked if this weapon was really that impressive. It was true. It would change the course of the battle. Glad it was made before the attack. Damian should have had enough time to get used to the new weapon. As soon as Evangeline arrived at home, today she was handed something by the secretary. Documents for transferring funds, adding up all the Cross family's property. The amount came out decent. With this money alone, Evangeline will not have any problems with where and how to live. She thanked him, but his secretary said something to her after he gave her this piece of paper. After receiving the money, there is nothing else to do in the city, so she must pack her bags. Exhaust herself quickly. He also said that it was the prince's order to pack up and leave the city. Is that true? It was true, but why was he chasing her away so soon? She hadn't even said goodbye to anyone yet. If she was going to leave, then there was no need to delay. There would be a fight here tomorrow, whether she wanted to give up being dragged into this. And yet she had to leave. There was nothing keeping her here anymore. She will be able to help in the upcoming battle, because he also helped her. He does not allow her to do this once he leaves. Then there is no need to dirty your hands. She could defend the city without the help of a child, but he'd seen her in battle, and that would be enough for her alone, even less. He shouted at her if she wanted to leave her hometown, start a new life. If that was why she gave up her inheritance, got rid of the house and everything connected with it. If she made such a decision, then let her be faithful to it. Death and filth. If he steps in there, he'll never be able to get out. It was better not to get involved in a battle with monsters at all, to leave forever. To find something else, interesting to do, to live a quiet life and have enough fun. This was the dying wish of her father. She said that she wanted to be a bad daughter, that she wanted to do everything against him, but to fulfill at least his last wish would be the right thing to do. Now she is a stranger, and this house no longer belongs to her family. Now he has a meeting about tomorrow's battle. He asks to leave the city as soon as possible. She thanked him for being there. She goes to visit her parents' grave for the last time, and then leaves the intersection, hoping that in the future he will expect nothing but victories. He didn't think he should be so strict with a girl. If he didn't do it, she would have feelings for this place. Didn't he hear that she wanted to help with the defense or that she could handle it alone? And yet he could say a little more politely. Not all goodbyes require a star enough and a stack of cash certificates. It seems that she said that she would finally visit the graves of her parents, while the cheating SSR rank character, the guy, burst into tears. He went to see his team, whether they were all well rested. Lily was in shock again, their great firecaster. Whether she enjoyed a bit of freedom, it's time to get to work. She prayed that they would send her back to the workshop, that she would work there until all that was left of her was dust. With less than a day to go before the invasion, they had to discuss the team's strategy one last time. Demian, there is a gift for him. This is a mana gun. Then a soldier ran into the room and said that there was information from scouts. Monsters appeared. It was impossible. An army of golems. The number is about 200. Currently, they are moving towards the city at an alarming speed. It can't be that they still have time before the start. Someone interfered with the game. Someone is pinning the system window well. They can't jam it in like this, and the enemies are divided into two groups. About 80% are moving in the direction of the city. The remaining 20 that have separated from the main group are heading towards the garden that previously belonged to the Margrave. But right now their daughter, Evangeline, is there. The monster's invasion could be seen with the naked eye, even though they were fighting them in the dungeon. Seeing hundreds of golems at once is scary as hell. It feels like a huge wall is moving towards them. Even they will be in range if they keep going at the same speed in at least 15 minutes. Until then, they need to settle all the problems and prepare for the fire. But he's not going to leave that girl. Why did it start so suddenly? Why did the monsters split into two groups? Why now? It can't just be a coincidence. Someone deliberately with obviously bad intentions is trying to sway the situation to their side. Whose malicious intent is this? And why is this someone so determined to ruin the game? A man approached him. From the old man's army, he continued to send them there. Now the defense line is strong. Everything will be fine. Without them, they can go to the garden. Save Miss Evangeline. Time is running out. There is very little time left to send a rescue team. They made a mistake twice. This is a statement about the strength of the current defense line. Is it strong from a surprise attack? You can forget about artifacts, even guns are not ready yet. The installation of artillery equipment must be completed before the arrival of enemies. Exclude them most of the remaining soldiers of the recruit. Do they think that will they be able to stand up to an army of golems with just newbies? And the second mistake is the claim that they can save the girl in the Garden of Margrave. There are no defensive fortifications, only plains and small hills. 50 huge elite golems are heading there, and even if there was a wall, they would fight using it. They would still be smashed to smithereens, because there are no defensive installations there, where they are going to save a girl with such a situation. The reason why this game combines the defense genre is excluded in the presence of a wall, which gives a huge advantage trying to fight monsters in an open field without any defensive structures. Whether face-to-face, would be a useless waste of life. Even if they all die and don't save the girl at all costs, can't they hear what God's plan sounds like? He needed a chance to win, not their wasted deaths. So what was he going to do? If no one came to her rescue, she would die. They couldn't let that happen. The soldiers are right without support. Evangeline will surely die. Well, to save her, you need to send the best elite squad. At least all members of their main team. While they will destroy monsters to deter enemies, will need the help of ordinary soldiers. The defensive stage in this case will fail. Even if they save the girl, the game is over. If the front falls, it's a dilemma. He was faced with the question of saving his wife or protecting tens of thousands of residents of the city. The man chose that he would save the city. He thinks he can understand his pain a little. He said, listen to his order. None of them will participate in saving the girl. Everything was decided from the beginning. They can't waste human resources. They must focus all their forces on the battlefield. 1 life against 1,000. From the very beginning, there was no need to hesitate. The difference is obvious in the balance. The wall will fall and tens of thousands of civilians will die after that. All of humanity will be in danger. This front must be preserved no matter what. They must continue to fight, whatever happens. This is the principle. If the game ends, there will be no point in saving or losing the character's SSR. He has repeated more than one of them again. Will not go to her aid. Instead, you need to complete the preparation of protective forces. To the southeast of the intersection stands the summer house of Margrave Cross, where he lived during his lifetime. In contrast to it, the garden looks as if it was taken care of until recently, without much diligence. And yet with the sunrise and the arrival of warm days, even in a land drenched in the blood of monsters, the trees bloom and bear fruit. Evangeline realized that she would never see it again, because she would leave this place forever after her mother passed away and she left home. Her father looked after this garden on his own. Until a few days ago, he stood here and tended the trees. He hoped to see a good harvest this year, even if he knew it would never happen. How stupid. Ruin her father and mother were dead, so she was leaving this place was a ruin before the name remains in the end. The end of the family that had defended this place for centuries was just a pitiful sight, and there's nothing left but death and ashes. Selling the remnants of her family's pride, stuffing gold coins in her pocket. The last surviving soldier flees without a fight. They'll never see again. She's leaving here far away in her heart. She hoped for an angry response, but of course there wasn't one. She wanted to say so much, but now he can't even remember suddenly, and Evangeline felt dizzy. Her temples were pounding, and it seemed that the ground was shaking. She must have been too emotional. I wanted to leave with a smile. She said goodbye to them. But then a monster jumped out at her. In front of her were memories of when she would go to fight. She had heard from her father that the heirs of the family were fighting at the front. Apparently, my mother didn't like the fact that she wanted to spend her time like this, whether she liked it or not. This is the fate of the family, and this is sad. But mother didn't know that it would be like this every time the monsters attack. She doesn't know that she will worry about dad. I don't know that the girl will also fight there when she gets older. But my mother knew about it. Knew that if she married her father, I would be waiting for her at night full of tears every time monsters invaded, and that if she was born one day, she would have to take up arms and how sad she would be at such a fate. She knew it all. Then why did she marry him? And why did she give birth to a baby girl? Rather, to continue something, why her mother chose a future full of sadness and fear. Even 3 years after her death, Evangeline still didn't understand. She thought that she would not be able to understand this for the rest of her life. How long she was unconscious. It doesn't seem like much time. Why the monsters are so close, the body reacted before the mind. The girl grabbed the soup and stood in a stance. Someone destroyed her house. The monster wants to fight, so let it act. Then there were 2 more and 2 more, and they multiplied and multiplied. She fought and tried to fight back, but the golem army ambushed her a day earlier than expected at the crossroads, so she had to go back and warn everyone else. Go outside, she saw a whole bunch of similar monsters, and then she realized that those first 3 golems were just scouts. This is real. You need to get out of here as quickly as possible, and there is no horse. Then she will run to the intersection. Whether she can make it with her injured leg, I don't care if it's now or never, the girl rushed. Well, I had another monster waiting for her. She needed a shield, and again she made a mistake. The girl was quick-witted, quickly realized that everything was over. Death came to her unexpectedly and unexpectedly. She still had so much to do. Did not go on a date. Did not get drunk. Did not try to smoke. Did not even grow up yet. She had never even thought about what she really wanted to do in life. And this was the end of her. There was no anger, no sadness, only regret. This was all that the little girl felt at the last moment of her life. Then she heard the voice of all the things that did not have time one by one. Life is short and she must live it without regret. It was our hero. He came to save her. 30 minutes ago on the front wall, the prince said that he would go alone, that he would be the only one in the rescue team, and that he would save the girl alone. Apparently, he has a hearing problem. First, he says that there is no point in a rescue operation, and now he says that he will go alone. He is going to commit suicide. The guy is not going to die. He goes because he knows how to win. Which character in this game is the most unpredictable? It is he. X rank. So the move for him and only for him took support with him, will only increase losses in case of emergencies. He prepared several strategies in advance, although some parts are simply impossible. It's not his fault that the game continues to behave like this. There is no choice but to take a risk. If they could under his command, they would have to know that he was very knowledgeable of the monster, and his plans succeeded even in seemingly hopeless situations. The hero has a plan this time. You need to trust him and let him go alone. They don't have time. He offers the position of chief commander to Lucas. But His Highness is in charge of everything. He could go after Evangeline. No, everyone has their own roles. He is needed here. The recipe must trust the guy's decision and agree with him. He promises that he will return safe and sound. The girl's refusal will mean giving up her morals, and saving everyone who can be saved is the only way to save Evangeline and protect the front. Everyone else knows their importance as magicians, and without him, let them do their best. And the prince must return unscathed as ever. He has a request for Demian. Let him protect the retriever house, and the prince will definitely return. The Margrave doesn't have to worry after all the sacrifices their family has made to protect this place. He will save his daughter at all costs. He gave the potion to the girl to get better. He doesn't see an army of golems there. They don't have a chance, and you need to run to the intersection. She immediately shouted to him. She will buy time for now, but it's too late to run. They will soon start shooting magic. What magical stone golems, 2 out of 5, came here? They not only have a high level, but also an elite status. They are actually bosses at this stage. Can he hear her and want to die here? She is an orphan, so there is nothing to take from her. But he is the Lord of the Crossroads. She asks him to come back for the sake of the people who depend on him. The guy didn't listen. He just poured a potion into her to make her feel better. Finally, she was quiet since she was a child. Then let her behave as expected. Sometimes you should rely on adults. He had been waiting for this moment for so long. Always wanted to cut loudly while using it. He summoned a giant steam golem. What an amazing reaction. It makes her rescue even more worthwhile due to the fact that the girl was in shock. The summoned monster control was obtained. The boss is under the control of the prince. There are so many different functions. He blocked one of the monsters from attacking. But what it was his lottery ticket. He didn't think that they would use the monster boss summon magic almost as soon as they got it, despite only being able to use the full functionality here once. They came down once from afar. They can't attack. They won't try to win outnumbered. Well, let them try. He used the intercept attack. He was able to defeat the monsters, so it's necessary this is his cheat code. The monsters in this game are divided into 3 categories. Regardless of rank, the monsters themselves are already too big a problem for humans. What about the bosses, which are significantly different from the other two groups? They are highly intelligent beings, with the ability to give orders to their subordinates already, only their overwhelming strength. Leading the boss legion has a huge power that can't be attributed to a single force, which is why the magic of summoning a monster boss can be called cheating, even though you can only use it once. However, no matter how fierce the lion is, hyenas do not retreat. Killing people was always a priority for the monsters, but they didn't tolerate traitors. No matter what the boss was, he couldn't defeat 50 giant golems alone. This fight looked like a mantis being devoured by a swarm of ants. The guy didn't expect him to easily beat everyone. They needed to get out of here. He didn't expect him to be able to beat everyone. They had time, they just needed to leave. She can walk, but she can run. He gave her another potion. They have to run. Her leg is cured. Everything is fine now. No problem. As long as they didn't run, the monsters rose up again, still in the air and chasing them, so they wouldn't just let go, right? And so she flew straight at them. She put her hand on the guy's head so that he wouldn't get hit and protected them with a shield. Why is she so short? He has to bend down too much to match her height. How does his back hurt? It would be better to ask why he is so tall. I don't like it. Let him heads. It's fun to come up against them, of course, but not under fire from the priority magic golems. He pointed out the point of attack. There won't be any magic attacks for a while yet. The girl was able to repel the attack. It hit the guy. No need to pay compliments out of the blue. Where's the horse? She was tied up by a tree and was in shock, trying to get away, but no, they couldn't. They had to run away together. The monster tore down the tree and the horse was able to escape. Now they don't have anything to ride on. He has a plan B. Destroy them all. How is it to destroy he that has gone mad? But this is the only way to survive. Either you kill them or you will be killed yourself. We must try. The girl must focus on defense. Let her use her spear only when she accumulates the maximum amount of energy. Well, then who will beat? He is using the jackpot, something like this. How does this fist of his work? These are the real divine dice. But he remembers that in games where only luck is necessary, everyone will fail sooner or later. Whether it is 1% or 99%, the probability never changes the player in the end. And now he did not get what he needed. A person aiming for victory shouldn't rely on luck. He should be confident in every attack. But even knowing this, he continued to swing his fist. Using all possible means whenever possible was his principle. And here is the result, a bad hand and a failure. He knew that one day it would happen. And besides, for failure, he would receive huge damage. He foresaw this. Lacerations heal. Broken bones heal. It was a hell of a pain. A potion from work. He won't be able to use his left hand for a while. It should buy him a lot of time, literally 10 seconds, so that he can rest. He needs more. The monsters were already too close. And as long as the piles of rocks were left behind, if you just rely on luck, the plan would eventually fail. He knew that. And yet he continued to use Lucky Strike no matter what. Because he'd backed himself up in case his luck ran out, Van shot triple kill. What it was a B2 lottery ticket. An SSR rank mana gun made from the Black Spider Queen's mana core. This is a gift to the guy, but he has captured his haste. Now he must use all the trumps that are on hand to fight with his left hand until he stops functioning. And after finishing off the monsters with this cannon, that was his plan. The gun is a bit heavy to handle, but at such a close distance, even a prince with his weak body can hit the bullseye. You can imagine that in the service of the army, the recoil like a cannon, he will definitely leave here with bruises, but it's a pity for his demon. The girl used the last hit of skill 2, damage return, and finally they finished off everyone who followed them. I had a lot of questions, but if she asked me one, what should they do now? He said they would kill them all, and now we can go back to the summer house. He has a few more safety nets there. But it's destroyed, the others will come soon, then they will be finished. If they want to get back alive, then they have to deal with them from hiding. They will try together with the allied golem. It is time for the function that has interested him most since the moment of summoning. Self-destruct. She no longer has the strength to wonder. The giant steam golem is finished. It has worked out. It would be nice if they die. They are still as many as 14. He had to run before everyone else joined up. He had to get home. The most infuriating ones were still attacking. They were still alive. So always the worst one turned out to be the most resilient, even though it looked like they had killed his friend. Ground with concrete, attacked their horse. They are almost there. Another magic attack. The girl was able to repel it again, but the shield was destroyed strength, not enough. And the attack flew on. She lost count but blocked the weapon's attack. Is very smart, but the spear isn't built for defense. She was fine. She had to go to the house. Now they're inside, just like he said the plan is. Because it can turn the situation around. Shouldn't she trust him? He's not a knight in shining armor, but he's not a bad rogue. He got a normal high-quality mana core. I threw it at the monsters and used the automatic defensive turret. The materials required for summoning are R or higher, and building materials like stone or wood, since there are plenty of them here. The turret protected them and attacked the monsters. Great shots. Let them use whatever they could. Maybe they thought the guy couldn't handle them. But no. The remaining golems stopped running and retreated, seeming to have guessed that if they continued advancing, they would die. And he was already wondering why they were so smart. Madly rush at people. That's the top of the monster's intelligence in this game. Well, at least take a break. It looks like they've gone into an activated state. They've got so many weird tricks up their sleeves. It looks like today the girl will spend her life supply, slits. What's his next move? He'll wait until the sun goes down. When he can use another safety net, her shoulder was hit the hardest in the last attack. Maybe there's a limit to how many potions he can use, so he'll go look for a bandage or something. After the bandaging, it should be much easier for her. She thanked him. Why is there so much alcohol and stinks? It's all because her father in the last year drank a lot. She did not know. Her father was not joking. He was almost constantly in a state of intoxication. This can't be happening. Her father, whom she remembers never touching alcohol in his life, said that monsters could invade at any time. He needed to be ready. Didn't even take a sip. He thinks a lot has changed during her 3-year absence. He looked exhausted. He couldn't go a day without drinking. Does she still hate her father? It was like this. She can't forgive him. If her father had chosen her mother 3 years ago, then would she have forgiven him? She wouldn't hate him as much as she did now, but she was in town. If her father went to save her mom in danger, she would be there. He wouldn't leave her. He would protect her. And she knows it. The guy's right. He did the best he could. He always did the best he could. Surely she knows that. How could she hate him then? The monster tore her mother apart. Anger and sadness drove her crazy. She was told that it was useless to hate monsters, that it was just an accident. So who could she blame? It's selfish to look for someone to blame instead of the monster that killed Mom. Very selfish. But if there was no one she could take it out on, her feelings would devour her from the inside out. Instead of blaming the monster really responsible for what had happened, she chose to blame someone who could take responsibility for what was happening here and now. Because it's easier to hate than to accept the loss of her father, willingly accepted her hatred, agreed that it was his fault, that he didn't save her, that all the responsibility is on him. And she hated him without hesitation. But now he asks her to forgive him, her. And what's left for him? If it's not his father's fault, then whose is it? They're all just trying to live. This is not selfishness. Everyone is trying to survive. But monsters are invading, and people are dying. Family members, friends, comrades are dying. This cannot be avoided. People are too weak to live. They need someone to blame for something. It's not because they want to hate. It's because they want to survive. They always need someone to put the blame on. They always need someone to be responsible for the hell that's going on. So she can hate him. Let him blame him instead of his father. He is the current Lord of Crossroads, and he is responsible for this place. If there is any time that the family has borne, it is obvious that he as the new Lord should accept it. She can make him object to her complaints, resentment, and try to at least understand her father. He just wanted to give her happiness. That's why he's doing everything he can to save her. The girl jumped up and squeaked that they were surrounded. They couldn't give more time. If you encircle a defensive turret, it will become useless due to the need to attack blindly, and the golems realize this. If they break in and I don't need to act, well, the girl has a spare weapon. She buried it a few days ago. The turret tried to attack the monsters, but they were able to overcome it. They broke into a run. They had to keep going a little longer. It was their last safety net. Before she knew it, she was in the back garden, where they were standing over the blood of her parents. There was no time to give in to emotions. Evangeline began to dig with her hands. A wooden box emerged from the ground, and inside lay a worn-out spear and shield, weapons that her father had carried for many years, the same one that the girl had requested to be buried with her father. Her dirty hands gripped her father's old cavalry spear tightly. Even as a child, she yelled at her father that she wasn't going to follow in his footsteps. When he offered her his spear and shield, Evangeline didn't want to leave them. She just wondered if her father would yell at her. It's cold in the north. The winter in the capital is very harsh. But he didn't. He told her not to get cold or get sick, that he could come back anytime he wanted. Her father's voice faltered. She slammed the door, didn't say another word. Her father didn't move from his place and continued to stand motionless, even after the carriage was out of sight. The spear and shield were not in the best condition like her father. That after the death of his wife, aged a moment when the girl was a child, his weapon looked so impressive. There was no sight cooler than the back of his father when he took it in his hands and went to fight monsters. How did it happen? How did it happen? It was necessary to escape the monster. They attacked. But the guy said that there was one more safety net. You just need to use it. He won't last long. The last safety net was a girl. He stood behind her and told her to take up her father's weapon and fight them, as he taught her. She wanted to say something, but there was no time for conversation, Golem. We were already too close. The girl tightened her grip on the shields. The spear weapon was perfectly placed in her hands, as if it had found a long-time owner. Suddenly another memory of her father flashed through her mind when she was very young and first began to learn. Of course, her father was very kind. She remembered her first fights, whether they were hallucinations. Everything slowed down around her. She knew where to join and at what pace to move at the level of reflexes. It was as if a road was laid out in front of her. She did everything perfectly. The guy initially believed in her, and it seemed as if she could see the way. But the fact is that this is her signature weapon. The talent works even without improvement, hence this effect. She has no idea what she's talking about here, but she's sure the prince knows the truth about this strange state. Now there's something more important to do. The last one that was in the sky and how to do it. It's too high to attack. She didn't have a long-range weapon, and her shotgun was out of ammo, so Evangeline could throw a spear, but if she got wet, the game would be over. However, there is a way out. Her prince always has a few tricks up his sleeve. The sun is almost down. The night has begun to come to his domain. This was his last order for today. He told her to run straight at him. He will throw it down on her. The girl didn't ask a single question about how he was going to do it, so it was better to use every bit of his power. The prince gave the order, and she followed him. Because it was the most reasonable, gave a high chance of survival. Well, what is this feeling? Prince Za attacked the monster in the sky cannot be. The bullet came from the intersection. It turns out that someone fired on a signal from such a long distance. Probably not something that a person can do. It's physically impossible. And who cares? Now this is her chance to finish what they started. She was able to remove it. It was a great job. She did it, and it was really over, at least here. Yes, the two of them had defeated 50 huge monsters together. His Highness was amazing, that's crazy. But tell him who they won't believe, so keep it between them. Now she can pass out, can't she? But what if he says no? If it's his order, then she'll try very hard. Let the little one fall asleep and not think about anything. 3 flashes meant that the battle was a success. Thank God everything went well there too. It took a lot of sweat at the end. He only had 2 blanks left. First of all, Damien's shot usually can't cover such a distance. It was only possible thanks to the 1,000-mile eye. Well, even one such shot is very annoying for a guy. You have to remember to thank him when he returns. And his last preparation was this little girl. Or rather, the preparation was Evangeline's family equipment. All SSR rank characters have personal equipment. A set of family religions. Cross. A spectacular set of characters. If your character equips both items, then a unique characteristic is activated. The path to cross. Usually it has something to do with their personal history. They often have either their own unique characteristics or special features, so they are exceptionally good. There are also a lot of outstanding heroes among the higher-ranked ones, and the presence of personal equipment makes the difference palpable. The combined experience of all family members is a unique characteristic of Evangeline. As she said in the moment of enlightenment, the girl seems to see a path. It's hard to explain, but this is the buff. During this mode, its combat effectiveness doubles, but it cannot be maintained for long due to mana consumption. In Rio, as soon as the character's loyalty reached the maximum level, a set was issued to him, and he could barely restrain himself when he watched them bury him. He let it happen. He was going to send her away anyway, but desperate times he had to go for it. He was just trying to save his daughter. He wouldn't be mad, right? The guy all ached to hope that everything should be fine with the city. They are already ending with the remaining shins with them. Everything will be fine. You can rest. He remembered how a certain boy was lying in the hospital, and he was looking at him. Then a girl came up to him. The guy woke up. Everything was fine. Just after a dream. Now they definitely won't die. And how is he? Considering that he had defeated 50 golems, it was just wonderful. And I'll have to stay here for the night. And I'll probably only be able to come back when the city's sieges are broken. and I wonder if everything is all right there. Definitely better than theirs. Suddenly he heard a sound. What else was it? No, it was just that she was hungry, and so was he. And he had brought a bottle of wine and that same bag of food from that man. I wonder what she tastes like. It was terrible, the fruit her father grew. He chewed it every day. And of course this old man was very persistent. She said she should have a drink too. They were too bitter. She needed something to wash down her drink. She was too small. It didn't matter. She almost died recently. He said he did what she wanted. She wouldn't hold back anymore, now she understood. Holding back when you wanted something was very stupid, so be it. He would give her one sip. More familiar sounds. It's strong alcohol, just like everything is normal. It was terrible, not delicious, of course, that fruit, that booze sucks, said the girl. That is, her father ate and drank. This is every day for 3 years defending the city in this state. Often swallowing only earth and dust, he sincerely wanted to leave. Did his duty, every day without shirking, like a real adult. She genuinely didn't want to become an adult. It's very sweet. She knows it herself. That her father secretly went out every night and stood by her mother's grave, she knew. And even though he didn't make a sound, deep down he wanted to cry. She knew. But she still hated him. So she wants him to be here alive, so that she can hate him as much as she wants. Just give her a chance to be a bad girl and yell at her and scold her as much as she wants. And now she's disgusted with herself that she's angry alone, that she's sad and worried alone, and that she's not happy. He just misses them so much. This is no longer a monologue, but a childish tantrum. The girl began to cry, and he silently allowed her to cry out calmly. In this cold and cruel world from now on, she will have to do her duty without shirking. You'll have to become a true adult. Live on, girl. She fell asleep, and he was standing in the grave in the east. The sky was pale. It was almost dawn. Under the brightening morning sky, he saw his soldiers approaching from afar. The next level came to an end. The Hiller girl didn't know how he got such increases, but until he could use his left hand as he was used to, the grip strength might weaken, and the hand would be less agile, uncomfortable overall. The price of failure is high. It is good that he is not an adshik. He needs rest. He can come to the temple for treatment every day. Whether everything was fine with the girl, although her body was still badly damaged, but if she does not strain herself, she will quickly recover, but a very strong girl. Well, her rank still isn't that low. His regeneration isn't comparable to hers. Well, still not young anymore, here comes the crumbling, and she's still a teenager. After the treatment procedures, Lucas reported to him on how the battle went. In 15 minutes, Demian shot all the magic golems, and the remaining ones were calmly sorted out for the next 6 hours. As soon as the golems were finished, they rushed to the Margrave's house. So easy to deal with the monsters, they are really good. Their rescue team was delayed because they carefully checked the front. He apologizes, but for what they did a great job. 14 were seriously injured. 128 were slightly injured, but there were no deaths, and indeed there were no deaths. For the first time they fought back without dying. It's just fine. The knight did even better than the prince himself, while his highness was away. Everyone was on edge without him. People just didn't know what to expect. Most likely this is because they did not have a non-bending commander. He thought that it just keeps people from going crazy during the battle. But apparently something else protects them from fear and dismoral, supporting them on a psychological level. It seems that he was able to calm people down with one of his own by your presence. It's something like aromatherapy. If they get hooked, he'll think about it later anyway. It's a great result. Don't worry, in the near future the prince won't be going anywhere. He is a security guard, his highness from his first meeting until the very end. Lucas will ask, don't go anywhere from him, especially to dangerous places. Take it off, everything is fine. But the guy overdid it, and blood came out of his eyes. She says that everything is fine at the moment he is undergoing treatment in the temple. As soon as Demian is cured, I need to see him. So far, things are going very well. There was a guy sitting in the inner garden of the Lord's manor. It looks like spring is coming. The weather is getting warmer. Why aren't they resting inside? He can get sick if he sits on the street for a long time. He sees that they are watching him like a child if this is another joke from a teenager. The girl did not think that she would live to see the morning, and did not think that she would see this dawn again. He apologized to her for having to go through this even on the day when she had to leave. She should be treated and recover. Rest until she gets better, and then go. She does not want to leaving. She had thought about it last night and decided that she would be the next Margravine. But her father wanted her to be free. He wanted her to live as she wanted. That was her last will. the only thing she could obey him about now. She wants to understand her father, how he felt then, what he was thinking, and still can't understand his actions. Because maybe after being in his shoes, she will finally be able to understand a little better the thoughts of that stubborn and honest old man. She really wants Wu to inherit her father's land and title, as an only daughter should. So naturally, she will share this responsibility, and the hatred that he bears alone. Of course, it's a little embarrassing to say this, but she is the best student of the academy. Of her course, she is still a high-ranking person. She will become higher and even cooler in just a few years. She will become such a brave knight. The most important thing is that it will become stronger as knights, as a person, and when it pumps in Ulta and personal equipment, it becomes a better tank. Well, what should I say to her, for example? Welcome to the team. Or that now we will fight side by side and defend this city together. The strongest tank, Evangeline Cross, asks permission to join his group. No idiot in the world will refuse such an offer. But the guy said, no, he is the lord here in the city, he will not give it to her. By the way, if she persevered and passed the inheritance procedure properly, she would be under his command as a knight, and she would have a chance to prove herself on the battlefield, but only when she was old enough to rule an entire city for her services. If his decision didn't change by then, would he hand over the command duties to her and grant her a countess? In 3 years, no 2.5, and she will be an adult. They will look. He will recognize her, he will see, and then he will expect his title and city back. During this time, the game will still be over by that time. It will no longer matter if he gives the city or not. Writes it out under the check. She decided to ask when she was a little mother, told her one thing. She knew that if she stayed here and married her father, otherwise she would not have a quiet life. And an easy life. She knew all this from the beginning, but she also said that she would do it because life goes on, which he thinks she meant. Even if she knew what the outcome would be, she still stayed in this city for it. She thought she'd understand when she was older, but she still doesn't. She knows what life goes on, the life that goes on, is sitting in front of him right now. Welcome to the front line of monsters, he greeted the girl. Let her have a good rest, and from now on she is officially under his command, and he will lock her up. The sun is shining, the weather is fine, spring has come. Now she seems to be beginning to understand. The girl realized what her mother wanted to say. Her mother was sure, she knew that for what she loves, you have to pay the highest price, and that her price can be a terrible death. Despite this, she stayed close to her beloved and gave birth to a daughter. She really loved with all her heart to support her soulmate, to pass on her will to the next generation. If there is a reason why people stay to fight monsters, then it's her. All the residents of the city live here with similar beliefs, because when spring comes and a sprout sprouts from the ground, then even in case of death from winter frosts in its place, a new sprout appears with the arrival of spring. Snow passes to every living creature, but it is important what remains after. And the family left behind not just dust, now it begins to understand mom and dad, although quite a bit, but there is no living place on it, and everything hurts, but the heart is light as ever. Spring has finally come. The prince became a MVP. In his room he watched other rewards. The necklace hidden ability was unlocked. I don't know why this necklace recovery, but it gives him access to the store, doesn't it? Eider's even messing around here. What a dark meeting to hear about this for the first time. An unplanned event occurs on the level that can interfere with the player's winning strategy. It turns out that he was the worst opponent at each level at the first level of live armor, the invasion of NPCs at the second level, the strange behavior of monsters at the third level with the division into 2 units. That is, from the very beginning, all this was dark events. No wonder he had a bad feeling that someone was deliberately trying to ruin his game. But why? Why try so hard for this? Who is behind all this manipulation? Far north of the crossroads is the center of the continent. The possible center of this entire world, the capital of the Everblack Empire, flourished. This city was the center of commerce, and its fleet covered all the nearby seas. People flocked there by the river 24/7. In the center of the largest city in the world, there was a palace because of the countless towers in it. There was a knock on Her Highness's door in the administrative chamber of Everblack Palace. Her younger brother again requested reinforcements, and she was the Imperial Interior Minister. He says that the invasion of monsters from the south is getting stronger every day and requires immediate reinforcements, which is the 3rd request in a row. She doesn't care, but the situation on the southern front, and the truth seems unstable based on their data. The invasion has never been so severe on modern grounds. He said he doesn't care. He understood it, the war with the Brinter Principality in the west is coming to an end. Now is not the time to split up the troops to solve problems with the south, although this is true. But the war with the Principality is a priority. If the southern front falls apart, then they will figure it out. This brat is always whining. This is nothing. More important is how the battle with the Bringer Principality is progressing. At the moment, the 1st Division is looking for the capital of the Principality. It is expected that the enemies will surrender within a week, and his older brother on the front line, who told him not to. The first prince of the Everblack Empire, Dark Avalanche Everblack. All night soldiers follow his orders. Wen is the commander-in-chief of the Imperial Army, famous for his bravery. He always rushed into battle first. But no matter how excellent his fighting skills are, he is still the first prince. The commander should be at headquarters, not on the battlefield. Both brothers are a pain in the ass. How's their father doing? He's nothing new in his chambers. The only emperor locked up in his own chambers for years to come. From the depths of the palace, he occasionally sent letters of orders, then called for help, so the prince took on all external threats, and the second prince took care of internal affairs. Over the course of time, rumors spread that something had happened to the emperor, most likely the absence of the emperor, and affected the activity of the principality, which resulted in a war. He was given a request for execution, and traitors held in the underground prison. Whether he would approve of it, of course, they are all traitors to the empire. Well, wait. Bragi asked for reinforcements. Let them send these hostages there. He just needs human shields to kill them anyway. What difference does it make if they die at the hands of monsters? This will be a big problem since the younger brother needs toys. He doesn't care if they are new or broken. Anyone is good. Let him send them there by the authority of the Minister of Internal Affairs. These Penamenikov will be sent as reinforcements, and the prince will be responsible for their execution. At the same time, he will help his brother. How kind he is. His something penetrates that it is more important than the demon's eyes. He moved to it early in the morning to visit the injured in the hospital. Will never get used to it. His eyesight will return after a few days of rest. Do not worry. He will no longer strain so much. The prince will command him, but he will no longer force him to make such sacrifices promises. He is His Highness, Trigger. As long as he is useful, then let him use it as soon as he wants. If he can help get rid of these terrible monsters, he will gladly pull the trigger even if he goes blind in the end. So let him use it as soon as he wants. He can't refuse him because his eyesight is too valuable. Doesn't he remember his first promise to him? He said that when the time comes, he can kill the prince. Then Damien lost his friend and the will to live. To make him recover. He used his hatred for him as fuel, I wonder. How does he feel now that he still hates the prince for the death of his friend? But he hadn't thought about it since his promise to finally see the world on the day they defeated all the monsters. That's when he would have asked about it. Then he will definitely answer whether he still hates him. He will have to wait a long time in 3 years. As soon as he gets to the center, then everything will end one way or another. Whatever his answer is, he will accept anyone. Loyalty is hate, kindness, and anger. The player and cheater character relationship doesn't matter. He just hopes that this young kid helps him one day be able to become happy. Whatever ending he reaches, that's all he prays for. The night after the victory, because of the intense battle, his whole body ached, but there was no time to rest. He needed to know the exact course of the battle in which he was not present. So he checked the wall, the artifact storage, the injured soldiers in the temple, as well as the production of weapons. Only after that he was able to return home. Also today they celebrate the victory, but he just made toasts, washed off salads, will be able to get drunk without his participation. Jupiter still has more experience in this, and the brain is required for training. But he still has things to do. Isn't it time for the knight to change class? Lucas has already been up twice. Now he is an elite knight. He opened the second skill. Privat consumes quite a lot of mana, but thanks to it, a cheat character like Lucas can move at an incredible speed. As soon as he opens Ulta and collects personal equipment, Luca will turn into the god of battle, of course. This path is difficult and thorny, but once they reach the goal, everything will pay off many times. He is their main character. Now he is a prince. This path from the bot of the first level to the 20th level of mediocrity. You already want to cry. The end of suffering. The time of happiness. Before that, his class skills were unknown to him. He will discover really imbuvy, well, nothing, stats. Not the main thing, skills. That's what really matters. Commander's Eye. It is able to control the mind of the target with which it has made eye contact. The lower the target's magic ability, the higher the chance of successful duration of use. In short, one area of mind control, it is obvious that it will be difficult to use. But doesn't that mean that it will be able to control monsters if contact? To be honest, he wanted a more independent skill, but maybe this is a good one in its own way, and he will learn it in practice. Chests, rewards, passing the level of 3 silver and 1 gold. I don't know. If you manage to open at least 10 of these by the end of the game, you can be called lucky. I hope he finally gets a weapon that he can use. You can't rely on random explosives. He needs a stable and practical weapon. The reward he received was the Wand of the Hero. All SSR rank weapons have unique effects, but even among them, this wand is famous for its own. Basically, it just creates blades. You can send several at once and attack as long as you have enough mana. This wand will be an excellent weapon at medium range. Even such a zero in magic, as he will seem like a real wizard, but the most interesting part lies in the buffs when practicing. When attacking with a wand, in addition to dealing damage, you can get a great buff in the game. He always equipped one of the characters with this wand to apply buffs to allies. And how will he explain to the allies that he will now flog them like, this is such an incentive? Still need to come up with a logical explanation for the beating with a magic wand. He fell into a dream tormented by contradictions. The next morning, he began immediate preparations for defense. First, you need to deal with the front part of the fort, which is closest to the Black Lake, was very badly damaged during the battle with the spiders. This happened during the training stage. The walls then suffered a lot. They were left. But now it's time for major repairs. That wall is difficult to defend. If they can equip it, they will be able to reduce the number of monsters that will reach the main fort. Next, he will take care of anti-aircraft artifacts to prepare for flying enemies in this game. There's a certain order of appearance of monsters. Flying Waves monster appears at least once in 5 levels. It will be one wave from the 1st to the 5th, and wave from the 6th to the 10th, and so on. There were already 3 walking waves, so flying monsters will appear very soon. Since the girl urgently needs to prepare artifacts, he will not send her to dangerous places anymore. She needs to calm down, but somehow, and he also began to equip her little by little. After 3 days in the Lord's Manor's backyard, the next war was still a week away. Hopefully they had had a good rest in these couple of days. Now it was time to find out what monsters were waiting for next. He wouldn't let them down, of course, but they didn't have idle time. What with the girl? She was embarrassed. It came after the time when the two of them went up against a whole squad, maybe because of the truth about her parents. Teenagers are so hard to understand. He also feels strange. He was ill after some contagious disease visited him, settled in their ranks. Jupiter did not want to get involved in the case of the young people. Only he would make himself look like they only have one hope for the night. He certainly would not get sick, of course. He got down on his knees and began to say how loyal he was. He understood everything. We need to get up. Today they explore the 3rd zone, the outer north wall, as usual. Go straight and look around. There will be no distractions. Do not survive the dungeon, only lead straight. You just need to fight monsters and go ahead. Battle on 2 fronts in order to reach the end. You need to kill the monsters that appear again and again underground and on the surface of this zone. It seems to be the easiest of all. It won't take long, and they'll try to get back in time for dinner. Whatever questions there were back then, they went ahead through the portal. There was advice that he should send several squads at once, but he doesn't have that many. The kingdom under the lake is truly mesmerizing every time they look at it. They came down from the observation tower and stepped on the wall. It was the outer north wall. It refreshed the information about this zone. Compared to the previous zone, everything is quite simple here. It means that the battle will be hard. But without surprises, of course. A lot depends on what kind of monsters appear. In any case, they will have to sweat. Something was approaching. It was gargoyles. As he thought, flying monsters. Here the monster will appear without end, so the wave number is displayed. In the first half of the game, there may be 2 types of flying monsters and loyal ones, which many consider to be dragons. But in fact, dragons, they are not rather a weaker subspecies. They are rather stupid. They are not able to use the skills of dragons, but they have something from dragons. They are still their direct descendants, so that magic doesn't work on them. He remembers being so desperate when he gathered a group of mages and couldn't even scratch a wyvern, not to mention that he likes to fight fire like a dragon. In short, they have flights and ranged attacks in their arsenal. But they are vulnerable to physical attacks so that with archers and ballistas, they can be defeated, albeit with difficulty. The second type of monster is the gargoyles that they met. Unlike wyverns, they bring physical attacks with a bang, but they are powerless against magic. In addition, they don't attack at long range. I prefer Blish combat, so the tactics against them are simple. Passing tanks and magic and artifacts work at full power to finish off these freaks. In other words, this ball is ruled by magicians. Magicians are the head of everything. He is waiting. He can't wait for a salary increase. Jupiter can afford to disperse in earnest. She drinks a lot of water. And he watches magic, and this game is expensive. It's worth it. It's a pity. You can't buy them a normal character. There were no orders for the guy. His eyes haven't fully recovered yet, as well as his left arm. He can handle it perfectly well without them. Now there are 2 knights and a mage on the battlefield. Those who have already raised their class twice in such a squad are more than enough to clear this area. They can rest mainly thanks to Jupiter. They were able to pass through a normal room fairly quickly. She's still a pain in the ass, but her skills are excellent. And so after walking a little more along the castle wall, they got to the boss room. They came to the north gate from here. The descent begins. They will finish with him quickly. According to the plot, this gargoyle decorated the palace of the kingdom under the lake in terms of skills. It is not much different from ordinary bosses, but it also looks impressive and gives a bunch of items if they drink decent clothes. Jupiter's gold rush was activated, but that wasn't the reason the old woman went crazy. 20 years ago, he was a centurion. 10 years ago, he was a centurion. It's not up to him to be a centurion all his life now. It was impossible to let the old woman die. It was necessary to finish off the monster quickly. If she was on the inner wall, she would have received a promotion long ago, the monster said. No, they would not have time to install it. The guy fired his weapon and hit the monster directly, thus saving the woman. She woke up. The girl decided to divert attention to herself. The skill that she used, the skill of the knight's shield. She held back the attack of the monsters. Jupiter did not know what happened to her. Why did she even start acting like this? She had to take care of herself. She is one of the most experienced people here. She put everyone here at risk and made a mistake. There are a lot of chests in the game. He must find a solution to scare off this favorite of gold. The knight goes to the front. Jupiter will protect them from this monster. Get rid of it. You don't need to shake yourself so much. She has already done a lot of things today. She should at least help somehow, usually keeps her face in front of them always. The guy wanted to fight, but the prince stopped him. He used clairvoyance 3 times with damaged eyes. Not to mention the insane recoil from the Black Queen. Maybe he's in a lot of pain right now. He can just wait. The prince wants to test his wand. Start right now. He used half of his MP, but only got 3 balls as soon as the magic left his body. He was in pain. Now when the guy uses magic, he thinks about it right away. She tries it now every time a woman sees him. He brings something new, interesting. A man with endless surprises. It's for training. You need to check the power of their swords. It is very good. He was able to attack the monsters. But after the attack, they disintegrate, because they cannot stand it. This monster chose the wrong path, and now rots here. What does that even say after beating them up? The girl said, and used the damage preservation skill. Now it's her turn. She used the damage recovery skill. The monster wanted to be promoted and wear cool, expensive ones like this statue. The girl was able to defeat him by making up for the same damage she did to them, and Jupiter must think and prepare a written reflection, and also let him return a week of her salary to the lodge. They are in the development of cities. The principal is very she wanted to object to him, but still did as he said. Jupiter, she doesn't know why she goes crazy when you see something shiny, but she used to be a greedy mercenary for money and a proud soldier. Before thinking about greed, he wants her to remember the pride inside her in turn. Loving gold is an uncontrolled trait, and her passive skill can't stop it either. She has no choice but to hope that Jupiter can control it herself. An old person, how can she help young people with a prosperous future and not interfere with them on the way? If this happens in the future, she is responsible for her life. She means that there is no need to be responsible. She is ready to sacrifice her life in such cases. She is responsible for this with her own money, and what is her daily salary. Although there was a small accident, they were able to clear this dungeon, and the golden gargoyle did not get any equipment, but instead they got a lot of gold. And also in the boss room, you can set the settings for getting set items twice in a row. Is this possible statically? Since they got the sphere last time, so now they only need gloves to complete the set. Because of this granny, everyone had to work hard, so she feels bad for getting this. Feels like she's rewarding a stupid child. But if so, then so. In any case, they have collected points, completed the exploration of this area. If they climb this ladder and go down, they will find the next safe point. This is the largest compared to what they saw. The base camp he told them about last time. The few people who live here gather often. There are also shops and blacksmith shops. The goal today is to find a new member. If there is someone smart and friendly to them, they will bring it back with them. The reason why he lost this research was because he met a friendly NPC and brought him to their side. Later, when the city was falling apart, the Guild of Mercenaries became busy, as now there is no choice but that there are not enough heroes, so you need to manage the city. Also important in this game, there are already a lot of people to take care of. He thinks there's anyone decent in such a dark, creepy dungeon to begin with. Are there any people here at all? It's okay if you fall short, it can be a ghost. As long as you're not good at killing monsters because they're ghosts. It's even ready to bring home a demon or zombie. After their short break, they climbed the stairs and headed down, the path as long as the path up the castle wall. I wish there was an escalator. At least it didn't make me more jaded than last time. Finally, after walking down for a bit, they reached the ground. The gate that they saw when they first entered the lake. Then they saw it from the outside, but now they will be able to see it from the inside. Basically, they came all this way because this door was closed. It looks like there is still no way to open this door. There is nothing here to open it. How do they open this magical kingdom at all? Maybe there is some magic device there. Besides, this door only opens once, the prince said. But when it's only when they start their invasion, when their army goes to war with the human world. Only then, everyone wanted to go back already. The safe point is right here. They will turn onto the main road from the north gate to go to the city. The main square has appeared. And on it the guys. They are the ones who will attack the fortress in the next defensive battle. They gather here bit by bit, and then when the time comes, they go to the crossroads. Can't they just destroy them now? Luca has to relax because of him they will be killed. Even at this moment, gargoyles from different parts of the city are flying here and joining the formation of this place in the heart of the guy's heel. If they hit them now, what will they learn besides useless death? More importantly, they have to do what they can do right now. That's how they moved away from the main road. Went 5 minutes deep into the lane. It's here. They had finally reached their destination, the base camp, and this place would serve as a springboard for future exploration. After being in a dark and unlit place for a long time, being in such a place brought them relief and comfort. Everyone felt comfortable there. But didn't His Highness say that people used to live here? Why is there no one here then? There were 4 or 5 NPCs in the game, and there's really no one here, which is a bad sign. Maybe that's it. Who are these guys in masks? This outfit the hero has already seen. Judging by their equipment, they are high level. They even brought a cannon. The prince doesn't see a way out. They've surrounded them. He let his guard down because it was a safe point. In the game, monsters can't enter and start fighting, but this is a reality, so there's no limit to how, where, and when a conflict with monsters will occur. There was no warning about this, no way to set up an ambush at a safe point. Who are these guys? What kind of situation is this? Even though the hero was in a panic, he still kept a straight face. This was a good-natured reception. Although he appreciates the enthusiasm of the host, he wanted someone to explain what was happening. They are researchers who have recently entered the dungeon. They are newbies who need to be supported, but even these words did not touch the enemies. They looked out from behind their masks with cold eyes and held their weapons at the ready. Maybe it's a hazing ritual to discipline newbies? Even today, this practice still existed. But isn't it a beautiful custom? What a low voice he has. He should go to the opera. Mock the newcomers. It's a tradition that has been going on for centuries. This is the process of preparing them for you. Isn't it necessary to improve the culture and its future? Who said that? Since then, when someone said such nonsense, one would think that such a voice was wasted. Whatever he may call it, of course, Mr. Explorer has a very boomer way of thinking, and he often hears that. Long life makes him change his values. It's the Pied Piper, right? That's what he calls him, funny nickname. He is a criminal who has committed a state idea and is roaming the Great Lake Kingdom. The last court musician left in the kingdom, the last court jester and court magician, he is Crown. He greeted the last player. He wasn't the most important NPC in the game, but rather he never fights by himself, either directing or disabling others. But in the last stage of this game, he appears in the first room of the last dungeon, which will lead them to the final boss. Even then, he didn't have any combat skills. Back then, his team was the strongest, a light opponent that would lose from a few hits. There were other guys. They called the hero a player. Does this mean that he understands the system of the world? He has so many questions now, but regardless of the story and everything else, getting out of this situation is a priority. Why they are hostile? Their company was walking here and trying to solve the secret of Kingdom. He does not even know what monsters are sleeping there. They're just trying to stop it. They're the last guardians to protect the kingdom. They are the last remnants of the Lake Kingdom, the night crawlers. They incinerate anyone who touches the prison of this city, as well as the intended targets. At this moment, he waved his hand, ordering an attack. The heroes are completely surrounded. They are a level higher and with equipment. If someone shoots, he will die or all. The prince uses all the available cards. You need to make eye contact. The world slowed down in an instant. There were 12 guys you can use your eyes on, but complex commands have a high risk of failure. He needs one that will help him escape. It's simple. Comparing the spirit of the users and the magic characteristics of the targets, 7 bodies were completed. The prince even bled from the nose. It's nothing. After the knight beat off the enemies, we need the team to run now. They'll escape through the teleport, which must be mind control, which is an interesting turn of events for the enemy. The enemies began to shoot arrows. The girl repulsed, but there was a gun, and the scammers were on their side. They are almost there. Can safely retreat and prepare a counterattack. Not so fast, the main enemy said. Fire and wind abilities together are more destructive than a direct hit from them. It was comparable to a cannonball. The attacks flew at the guys. They would destroy their team. We need to stop this, but how? Jupiter got in their way, but she can't hold them back for long. They have to run. He opened the teleport. Damien and the woman went first. Once the monsters realized they couldn't stop them, they stopped attacking, and they just stood there and watched. The hero does not know what he was thinking under his mask, but the smile of the mask itself was frightening. Let him wait and see the monster playing the flute. It's a hackneyed phrase for third-rate villains, but the guy couldn't leave without saying it. He'd come back and beat the crap out of him. Another new enemy. The free exploration was over. The players had leveled up. Jupiter was injured, and right after returning, late at night, they were in the temple. In the future, do they also have to fight people there in order to protect people? Should they beat them up? When the hero played, he obviously killed enemy NPCs, but this is not a problem, PvE or PvP. Now this is the first reality. They are human beings breathing just like them. Can he fight them like he fights monsters? Right now, the prince is facing the same dilemma as Damien. In order to survive, in order to clear the stage, is it okay to quarrel with people? Is it okay to kill? Hiller came to him. The treatment was completed. No one had life-threatening injuries. From the injury of abusing her magic, she is now in a state of magical overload. She is not really dangerous. This is a state where magic gets out of control and eats up the host's body. Perhaps she won't be able to use magic for the rest of her life. She should rest. Jupiter was the biggest driving force at this stage. Who would have thought that such an accident would happen? There would be no way to visit her. She was in critical condition. Maybe he's being too hard on her about the gold rush. He feels low. All the others are probably cured and are on the street. He thanked the saint with a penny and left. They were really fine and asked about Jupiter. Her injury was pretty serious. Lucas knew. She couldn't even go back to the front. Was it that serious? We must be grateful for this fate. Everything could have been much worse, but the company's faces still could not brighten up. The mysterious enemy force that is in danger and the help of a comrade, it was strange. The hero is going to let the monsters taste their sharpness. After they touch them, they must pay the price. Although killing them would be another problem. It's worth thinking about. In any case, they need to pay back, but now is not the time. Their preparations must be perfect. After they pass this stage and finish preparing for the next one, they are going to beat them. Revenge is best served cold. Rationally, meticulously, with sharpened knives and ready bullets. They will destroy enemies instantly, but for now you need to keep your cool. Today, everyone has a rest. Nothing to think about. He ordered the group to take a break. Eat, sleep. Now the hero is home. What should they do with the defensive battle? They can measure the empty space of Jupiter Lily, but Na is not so powerful. Eider was running towards him. The prince tripped him. He fell. The guy was angry. Very angry. He hadn't seen him around these days. What was he doing? Was he doing any work at all? Sure, but that's not what's important. There's a bigger problem. This stage could be the worst of all, of course. What could be a bigger problem than not having the main mage in his group? The fact that 7 prisoners left the prison, or rather took the carriage. What does this mean? The prince asked. Which prisoners? That's how this video ends. If you have sat through to the end, please don't forget to press the subscribe button and leave feedback. See you in the next video.